Well, good morning. In case you haven't figured out, I'm not Mayor Paulette Guajardo. The mayor is ill and requested that she's having a problem with some laryngitis and some allergies, so she's asked that I preside today. My last day as Mayor Pro Tem, with that, I call the meeting to order, and I'd like to call Reverend Roy from Holy Cross and North Beach to give the invocation. Father?
Thank you. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, God of justice and mercy, thank you for the gift of life. Thank you for the city where we live and the opportunity to serve people of our city. Lord God, you taught us that citizens ought to obey the governing authorities, since you have established those very authorities to promote peace, order, and justice. Therefore, I pray for our mayor, for the various levels of city officials, and in particular, for this assembled council. Help them to act with the character and conviction. Help them to listen with understanding and goodwill. Give them a spirit of service. Remind them that we are stewards of your authority. Guide them to be the leaders your people need. Help them see the humanity and dignity of those who disagree with them, and treat all persons, no matter how weak or poor, with reverence your creation deserves. Grant them the wisdom and courage to take right decision during this meeting based on your will. May they speak out when it is time to speak out, and listen patiently and respectively when it's time to listen. May they always be guided by the spirit of community, by the spirit of justice, and by the spirit of love. We ask this as your sons and daughters, confident in your goodness and love. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Father Roy. And now the Pledge of Allegiance will be delivered by Julian Vasquez from WBA High School. Julian?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please join me in honoring the Texas flag. I honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Ms. Huerta, will you call the roll?
Mayor Paulette Guajardo.
Present.
Council members Roland Barrera.
Here.
Council member and Mayor Pro Tem Roland Barrera.
Here.
Council members Gil Hernandez.
Here.
Michael Hunter.
Here.
Billy Lerma. Here. John Martinez.
Here.
Ben Molina.
Present.
Mike Pusley. Greg Smith. Can barely hear him, but I did hear it here. City Manager Peter Zanoni.
Here.
City Attorney Miles Risley. Here. Mayor and Council, a quorum of the Council and the required charter officers are present to conduct the meeting.
All righty. Today we handled some proclamations. Councilman Martinez and I pinch hit it. And so I did a local emergency planning committee for safe digging. It's the month of April. And Councilman Martinez did National Nutrition Month, right? And Girl Scouts Month. And then we also did National Community Development Week. So, Ms. Huerta, do we have any public comment?
Yes, sir. You received some written public comment, some yesterday and a few this morning. We also have 4 call-ins as well that we'll be taking care of today.
All right,
Okay?
thank you.
Just bear with us just a moment.
They're doing the.
Mayor and Council, I have Sandy Santana on the line. She resides at 7042 Tamarind Court, and she'll be speaking regarding item number 6. Ms. Santana, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Thank you, City Council, for hearing me out real quick. My name is Sandy Santana. I used to be the executive assistant to the presiding judge there for municipal court for over 9 years. I recently left there January 15th, but I just wanted y'all to know that as an executive assistant and because of COVID, things changed, and I was not I followed what the judges wanted, but I also, I was a core person to call. And I just wanted to give you a little input about my experience with Judge Burkett. The judges are very, very busy, extremely busy, all of them. But Judge Burkett is an exceptional judge that often I called her even when she wasn't on the schedule or she wasn't on duty. She's the go-to person that I could always rely to answer her phone and to take the task. There's crime doesn't end after 5 or after your shift. There's still magistrations, there's still warrants, there's many different types of warrants. Emergency mental health warrants, high crime warrants, code enforcement warrants, and especially the high crime and the more serious ones come in after hours. And Judge Burkett always knew that was important, and she would just step up to the plate. Some of the judges would sometimes tell me, get the judge that's on call them. But Judge Burkett always answered the call and did that for us. And unfortunately, she's always kind of even been discriminated by from the defendants, and people don't even know that. She's been called all types of things because she's Asian. She's actually suffered quite a bit, and unless there's a real need to not reappoint her, I really am disappointed and not, I'm going to say just disappointed that she did get reappointed. She really deserves to be left as a full-time judge. To remove her and put somebody new who doesn't have the experience. Reappointments are every 2 years, yet it takes about 2 years to really get to know municipal court law, because many of the judges, even though they're attorneys, they don't work with municipal law, or they don't use the software that we use. So it takes time, and I just wanted to give you all that little bit of input. That was my experience with her. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Santana. Bye. Mayor and Council, I have Judge Youngman Burkett on the line. She'll be speaking regarding item number 6 and the executive session item as well. Just a moment. Judge Burkett, go ahead, please.
Okay. Good morning. Thank you for giving me the time to address you in public comment. In municipal court, most people who come before me do not have an attorney, and I make it a point to fully explain the proceedings to them in plain language. I learned English as a second language, so I know how intimidating it can be to encounter specialized legal terms. I am confident to tell you that the people who came before me fully understood the proceedings and made informed decisions. I also work well with my fellow judges, staff, and law enforcement. Before and during the pandemic, I would trade or cover scheduled dockets to accommodate other judges' needs. Additionally, during warrant roundup weeks, I would always volunteer to work the last Friday of warrant roundup, the busiest day of the busiest week of the year that often extends until 10 p.m. or later. You may have seen the lines around the block reported on the news. The only exception to that was the year that I flew to South Korea to be with my father as he passed away in 2018. Because municipal court judges often issue orders of emergency protection in family violence cases, I have forged close relationships with CCPD's victim advocates and many of the police officers who work on those cases. I was always available after working hours to sign search warrants and conduct juvenile rights readings for the police. Many of these warrants and readings occurred in the middle of the night, even when I worked the next morning. My relationships with law enforcement officers were further bolstered by my prior work as a prosecutor in the district attorney's office for 7 years. Finally, I have also helped the municipal court function more efficiently during the pandemic. When the municipal courthouse shut down and magistration of arrestees could only be safely accomplished by video conference, I developed a procedure where the judges could fill and transmit paperwork completely electronically to the city detention center. Before that, a judge would have to print forms partially filled out by the staff, fully fill the forms manually, rescan the documents, and then electronically resend the documents, then printed by the staff before an arrestee could be magistrated. The new system I developed saved valuable time and resources and ensured that arrestees spent the minimum time in our city facility. I have always received positive evaluations from presiding Judge Lowe. I received no notice, however, that my job was in jeopardy from the presiding judge or city staff. In fact, it was just by blind luck that I was made aware that I would need to be here to address you today. I would like to continue to serve as a full-time municipal court judge for the next term. If you reappoint me, you will see the same dedication to service that I have displayed in the past. I know the opinions of the public who have appeared before me and attorneys who have regularly practiced me in municipal court will support the decision to reappoint me. I humbly ask that you consider my request for reappointment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judge Burkett. Bye-bye. Mayor and Council, I have Matthew Manning on the line. He resides at 517 Monette Drive, and he'll also be speaking regarding item number 6. Mr. Manning, go ahead and make your comment, please.
Thank you. Good morning. As many of you know, my name is Matt Manning. I'm a former first assistant district attorney in the Nueces County DA's office, and I'm currently in private practice with the law firm Webb, Cason & Manning. I'm calling in this morning to tell you emphatically that what should happen as it relates to Judge Burkett is she should be reappointed. Having had the opportunity to appear in front of judges all the way from here up to the northern part of our state, it is imperative that we have judges with the kind of character and industriousness that I've seen in Judge Burkett. I've had the opportunity to be both in front of her as a litigant and to work alongside her as an assistant district attorney before she went to the Corpus Christi Municipal Court. And I think what's particularly important about Judge Burkett as it relates to the function that the municipal court serves is that she has not only the temperament and obviously the ethics and the integrity, but she has exactly what you need in a judge in that court, because that court is very often the first intersection that many citizens in our society have with the court system at all. They get a speeding ticket or a code violation, and that's where they go to learn what our system is like. We need judges like her who are going to be patient, who are going to be good at explaining how the process works, and who are ultimately going to be seeking justice above everything else. Having worked alongside her and having appeared in front of her, I have seen her exemplify those core tenets both on the bench and off the bench. And that could not be more indicative of the kind of character she has and in terms of what we need on the bench. Now, not being privy to all of the decisions that go into a reappointment, I readily concede there's more nuance than just the person is a good person. But having been in front of her as many times as I have and been around her both professionally and personally, I can think of no better example of a person we need to be on the bench than Judge Burkett. I think the city has been served magnificently in having her on the bench, and I think that she is emblematic of the exact diversity that we say we want in our society and that we need in our society and that we need right here in Corpus Christi. I think what I've seen her do on the bench and how I've seen her interact with citizens is exactly what the council should be looking for in determining, whom they're going to appoint and whom they're going to reappoint. So with that being said, I urge all of you emphatically to reappoint her. I think the city is served magnificently in having her in that role. And as a person who works in our courts every day, it is always a pleasure to stand up in front of her because I know she is going to seek justice and nothing else, and that her sole decision will be whatever she thinks makes our society a little more just. And in this time where our citizens have questions about the veracity and the propriety and frankly, the fairness of our justice system, she is proof positive that there are judges.
Mr. Manning, your time is up. Thank you so much. Okay, have a good day. Bye. Mayor and Council, Christopher Gale is on the line. He resides at, it's P.O. Box 2591, and he'll be speaking regarding item number 6. Mr. Gale, go ahead, please.
Good morning, Council. This is Chris Gale. I actually live on the island here in Corpus, so I'm local, and I have the pleasure of speaking in regards to Ms. Burkett today, somebody that I probably, if you listen to anybody, resonate that she's probably the best qualified for the position, and somebody that's, never had any discipline and always had good reviews, and actually forego her citizenship to become an American citizen and to serve this community. I cannot think of anybody that would sit in that position any better than she could. But I'm here today also sort of as sort of an anomaly, and I'm kind of a little behind the 8 ball as my Judge Burkett is as well. Obviously, my concerns, and I had sent something to some of the council and to the clerk in regards to any requests that my client, if she's discussed, to be an open session. And that's really because she just sort of found out without notice that this council was considering or talking about reappointments or otherwise. And my concern is not necessarily one that's threatening or anything, but is sort of a notice. I think there's a concern in regards to the notice that was provided on the 23rd. I think there was an ordinance that was posted. There were certain names that were listed out as far as reappointments or discussion of that nature. But, I'm looking at the Open Meetings Act, and I think there may be a concern with sort of the procedural nature of everything that's gone on. Miss Judge Burkett got a schedule earlier this week that placed her on that schedule as far as working. Unbeknownst to her, everyone else that was a judge was given a different schedule that did not have Ms. Burkett on it. And I think it kind of goes to the issues that we have in regards to the original notice that was provided. Just some errant possibility is that she found out that this was being discussed, but otherwise would have had no notice of anything discussing her. And while typically the Open Meetings Act doesn't require that you give notice to every particular employee, as you kind of go up the sort of a ladder of importance in regards to the city, the importance of giving that notice becomes evident when you're talking about chiefs of police, judges, things of that nature. And there is nothing provided in any of the notice that gives her any indication that anything was ever going to be discussed regarding her. So that's why we're kind of coming a little bit late after the first reading and requesting sort of that you pull back and maybe discuss a little bit more in regards to why it is that she's not being reappointed. I say that because, there's a plethora of cases out there that talk about going back and trying to resolve what is otherwise maybe avoidable action. I'm not threatening the city or anything of that nature, but I'm just trying to let everyone understand that there should be some concerns in regards to this. In particular, I think that
Mr. Gale, your time is up. Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Mayor and Council, that concludes the public comment period.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Zanoni, would you, I guess you have your report?
Yes, sir, Mayor and members of the council. We're going to cover 4 things this morning, but I do want to begin by talking about money and the American Rescue Plan that the federal government passed. I did send the council a memo late last week, and I just want to go over some of the details this morning to make sure we're aware and the community is aware. So Constance Sanchez, our Chief Financial Officer, who's here, and our financial advisor is here as well this morning, Noe Inahosa. We want to thank you to the meeting, Noe. But the federal government recently passed a $1.9 trillion COVID relief package known as the American Rescue Plan, right, $1.9 trillion at the federal government. The city of Corpus Christi will be eligible to receive $68.7 million of that money. $68.7 million will come to our city of Corpus Christi. It's going to be distributed by the U.S. Department of Treasury in 2 different allocations or allotments. The first half we'll receive in May, which is about 60 days when the legislation was approved. And then the second half we'll receive a year from May. So we'll receive that first half this coming May and a second half next May. Statutory language was in the legislation, right, that the federal government passed, but the U.S. Department of Treasury will issue guidance detailing how the money can specifically be spent. We have some general categories. I'm going to go over those with you today. But the Department of Treasury will be releasing more detailed documents and instructions on how we can use the money, even though the federal government legislation had specifics in there. So there's 4 broad categories on how we can use that $68 million. The first is to respond to the pandemic itself or its negative economic impacts, including providing assistance to households, to businesses, nonprofits, to aid impacted industries such as tourism, travel, and hospitality. So that's a pretty broad category there. Another one is to provide premium pay for eligible workers. During the pandemic, providing a certain hourly wage for those workers. Another one is to provide government services to the extent that there was a reduction in revenue as a result of the pandemic. We know that revenues in our sales tax and hotel occupancy tax were less than what they were projected to be because of the pandemic. And so providing services to supplement what we couldn't do because of the reduction in revenue is another category. And then the fourth one is to make necessary investments in water, sewer, or broadband infrastructure. That's kind of a catch-all category, but we do run the city's water, wastewater systems, not only for our county, but for 7 others when it comes to water. So we'll look at that as well. So as we do receive more guidance from the Department of Treasury, we'll be using that information to do the following. Constance is putting together a city team of executives, including our finance director, budget director, and a few other executives, to begin to develop some recommendations on how we can use that first half allotment, so about 34 million, I should say, we can use pretty immediately. In May, we'll be getting that distribution. Constance is going to put together with that team some recommendations, and we'll bring those to City Council in one of our council meetings in kind of a workshop format to share the recommendations and options that we have for the council and then get your input at that point. And that's how we'll progress forward on that. Okay?
Excellent.
Yes, sir. Okay, and now the second item deals with Ocean Drive, and this is an important drive for our community. You know, we have the Revive the Drive program underway, And today we want to highlight the progress of our Revive the Drive initiative. That is a rehabilitation project of that very scenic roadway from end to end, so from Ennis-Jocelyn all the way to I-37. We know that roadway is an iconic stretch of roadway, but it was in real bad shape, right? And I know Councilman Michael Hunter used to like to ride to City Hall on that, as well as a lot of us didn't. And the reason being is that it was last overlaid about 46 years ago, in 1974. So there was some spot treatment and some seal coats that were put over the road since that time, but obviously it's not enough to fix the road. And so the Revive the Drive project focuses on restoring that roadway. It's just under 15 miles of complete street restoration at a price tag of just under $13 million, but well deserved for the community and for our tourists as well. The project is going to be done in 4 phases. We're going to show you an update video here in a moment, and they'll talk about those phasings, but it's being done kind of incrementally, so we're not too disruptive to traffic and the homeowners and businesses that are along the roadway. The construction began in last October, and it'll be complete by October this year, 2021. The original date for completion was going to be August, kind of towards the end of August, but with the extreme weather event in February and those colder temperatures in January, where you can't lay asphalt, it has to be a certain temperature. We're adding a month or so to the project, and so the end date is now going to be by the end of October. So instead of end of August, it'll be the end of October, which is understandable given the weather that we had. We are relying on 2 of our strongest private sector firms, and we're glad they're here in our community. That includes Haas Anderson and then Bay Limited. So those road and other construction firms are helping us tremendously in this project. We're relying on the private sector, and we say that often. We will be providing updates to the council as we progress forward, but let me have us look at this video here that kind of shows you some aerial footage of how it's looking so far, and that phase 1 is nearing completion.
The Revive the Drive Ocean Drive Rehabilitation Project spans from Ennis-Jocelyn Road to Interstate 37 downtown. The plan focuses on restoring the city's most popular seaside route and will improve mobility and connectivity through all 14.7 miles of the project. The $12.8 million project will be completed in 4 phases. Ocean Drive from Ennis-Jocelyn Road to Louisiana Avenue is approximately 10.2 miles. The current active construction project, which consists of 3 of the 4 phases, totals $10.4 million. The project scope includes the removal of 6 inches of existing pavement material, installing 4 inches of structural asphalt base, and overlaying with 2 inches of the final roadway surface. Traffic control, pavement markings, bicycle lane markings, and new signage are also part of the improvements. Construction is currently underway for Phase 1 from Ennis-Jocelyn Road to Airline Road. This segment is approximately 3.6 miles in length and is 80% complete. Southbound lanes are complete from Ennis-Jocelyn Road intersection to Airline Road intersection, including striping and adjustment of manholes and valves. A layer of the asphalt has been installed on northbound lanes with temporary striping done for traffic safety. A final layer asphalt is scheduled to be installed next, followed by adjustment of manholes and valves and striping on the northbound lanes. Phase 1 is expected to be substantially complete by the end of March. The next segment scheduled for construction is Phase 2 from Airline Road to Rope Street, which will encompass 3.4 miles of the project. Phase 2 is expected to begin in April. The final 3.2 miles section is Phase 3 from Rope Street to Louisiana Avenue. Ocean Drive from Ennis-Jocelyn Road to Louisiana Avenue is expected to be completed by October 2021. To minimize the impact to the traveling public, the project phasing was resequenced. As a result, the project timeline was extended. Shoreline Drive from Interstate 37 to Lomax Street is approximately 1.2 miles. This fourth of the construction project totals $1.85 million. In this project from Interstate 37 to Lomax Street, Bay Construction Limited will be performing a 2-inch mill and overlay with pavement markings, signage, and pedestrian crosswalks. This segment is scheduled to be completed by August 2021. Lomax Street to Louisiana Avenue is approximately 3.3 miles. The limits of Shoreline Drive from Lomax to Louisiana are currently in good condition and will undergo a beautification process. This section of the roadway was reconstructed under the Bond 2008 and Bond 2012 program in 2016 and 2018 respectively. For weekly updates on the Revive the Drive Ocean Drive Rehabilitation Project, visit www.cctexas.com/Ocean Drive.
Okay, great. That shows you some real good footage. And as you notice, it's a complete mill and overlay from curb to curb. So it does include other modes of transportation like the bike lanes that are there. There's some pretty wide shoulder that are used by bikers as well as joggers. So a complete redo. It looks real good, right? I've already received several texts and messages saying they love driving it, the people that live on it. So making good progress, and we'll continue to show you in the community the progress that's coming. Now, on Shoreline Drive this weekend, as Councilman Barrera is aware, there's going to be some substantial activity. I want to bring that to your attention as the third item. We know last weekend, if anybody was down by the seawall or downtown eating, there were a lot of tourists and community members out enjoying the bayfront. It was a beautiful weekend, and this weekend will be similar. This weekend, Texas A&M Corpus Christi will be having the Islanders Women's NAAA Division I beach volleyball team tournament will be hosted down there this Friday and Saturday. It's known as the 2021 Connie and Jay Weiser Islander Classic, and it's going to be at downtown Water's Edge Park. So we want to let the community know because it's free for the community. It supports the university if we go down there and watch some of the volleyball. And it's a great way to experience the Bay. There'll be 5 universities that are competing in the women's volleyball. That includes Texas A&M Corpus Christi, Texas A&M Kingsville, and then we have the University of Utah, the University of Houston Baptist University, and then Stephen F. Austin. The teams will all play each other in a single match game over the course of 2 days. And it is a full 2 days, and so the programming begins on Friday and Saturday at 8 a.m. with the first game, and they go throughout the day with the last one beginning at 4:30, and they're about 2 hours per game, so it'll be till 6 o'clock, 6:30. So two days of NCAA Division I volleyball right here in Corpus Christi. Last year, the university didn't host this because of the COVID pandemic. But this will be the third home tournament in the school's history, and it started in 2016. The Islanders, as I mentioned, didn't have one last year. But in addition to the Islanders playing there, there'll be DJs, there'll be music. We're also going to have 5 or 6 food trucks in that nice area that the city redid at the Water's Edge Park, right by the pavilion and other facilities. And so we encourage the public to come down, or us to come down and check out either Friday or Saturday, any one of the games, or spend several hours down there. If you want more information, go to www.goislanders.com. Okay, that's where the complete schedule is. Okay, and then the final item deals with crisis intervention. And we know that, unfortunately, in recent weeks, including just last week, we've seen tragedies take place across our country and involving individuals that have severe mental illness, right? It's nothing new to our community or society, but police operations have changed in communities, including our own, to respond to how police departments respond to emergency calls when it involves individuals that need mental illness assistance. And so our department, with Chief Markle and his team's intervention back in 2018, developed a crisis intervention team here in our city.
Markle.
It's a good jail diversion initiative as well, because in the past, these folks pretty much just ended up in jail, and it was a revolving cycle to even more calamity. And so our crisis intervention team assists individuals with mental health issues by providing them resources for mental health care, as well as for promoting healing and rehabilitation, rather than just putting them in conditions that don't take care of that and cause even further harm. Earlier this year, I got a chance to meet and spend some time with one of our police officers, Senior Officer Barnes, and he's one of our lead crisis intervention persons. And after he gave me an overview of what he does day to day, I said, you know what, let's have the city council hear of this in the community, because it's truly a great initiative, and it's great work that he does every day that he's out there. And I'm going to just give you a little bit more information about Crisis Intervention Team, and then Officer Barnes is going to come talk to you. So the Crisis Intervention Team, as I mentioned, was established in 2018, and it is a collaborative effort, not only with our police department, but we rely on Nueces County Center for Mental Health and Intellectual Disability as a partner agency. We use specially trained police officers are called in during crisis intervention scenes as well. The team in total is comprised of 17 members, not just from the city, but we have Officer Barnes, as I mentioned, 2 Nueces County deputies, a part of this team, and then we have mental health professionals as well. So with that introduction, let me have us hear from the true professional in our crisis intervention team. That's going to be Officer Barnes. He's going to talk to us a little bit more about this initiative that we have.
Can I take this mask off?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Who would have thought a taser would be such a dual purpose for holding a mask? But anyway, I really appreciate that, City Manager. And yes, my name is Sean Barnes. I'm the full-time mental health and crisis intervention officer for the Corpus Christi Police Department. I got to say, too, first of all, before I even get started, that it's such an honor to be here, especially that my command staff or the leadership with the Corpus Christi Police Department and the City Manager would believe that I have some knowledge that you guys would like to hear. So I really appreciate that. Let me get on to the very first point, the most important point to me, if we can hit next, and that is that I love my job. So I've been a police officer for 9 years, and in this increment of time, which I've been serving at this capacity for a year, I guess what I'm saying is being a police officer, you truly have a unique platform to help people. You really do. But in this particular position, I have a very unique platform to help people, especially the most at-risk and vulnerable population within our communities, or one of the most. So anyway, I'm really appreciative to have this opportunity. Next slide. Next. Okay, so first we need to identify what is a crisis, because I can tell you we're the crisis intervention team, and obviously that implies that we intervene in a crisis, but if you don't know what a crisis is, then you may not necessarily know exactly what we're intervening in. So a crisis is not discriminate to anybody. You can be of any age, gender, socioeconomic status, culture, and mental health disorders may not necessarily even be present. Anybody can experience a crisis as a result of some loss, or maybe they lost their job or something to the other. Next. So these are acute, time-limited, unstable events experienced as an overwhelming emotional reaction to one's perception of an event, which an individual's coping capacity is temporarily overwhelmed. This is just a very intense emotional state of mind. Next. A crisis for one, so it's relative, is what this point is saying, is that a crisis for one person may not be a crisis for another, and what is a crisis now may not have been a crisis for you before. Next. And mental health crises and the danger to others are not always one and the same. So just because somebody is experiencing a mental health crisis does not necessarily mean that they are a danger to themselves or others. Next. And some basic common examples that I think anybody could understand are a crisis are examples like suicide ideation, somebody who's having extreme anxiety, psychosis, and by psychosis I mean hallucinations, whether that be visual, audible, tactile, however else, and as well as intense paranoia or bipolar mania. Next. Next. So the crisis intervention team, what we do is we respond to persons experiencing a mental health or substance abuse related crisis. Next. It is a collaborative effort, as the city manager said, between the Nueces County Sheriff's Office, our local mental health authority, which is MHID, the acronym, and the Corpus Christi Police Department. Next. And the philosophy of the CIT is to identify the needs of a person and utilize the least restrictive environment to facilitate treatment. So that point right there, I want to just kind of stick it in the back of your head, because I'm going to illustrate that here in a little bit about how the CIT actually utilizes the least restrictive environment. Next. And the CIT uses numerous resources within our community to bring hope, relief, and the feeling of a positive direction forward to persons in crisis. Next. So as he said, we were established in 2018 due to the continued increase in instances where police officers are responding or encountering people who are mentally ill. Next. You can just hit next all the way through on this. I think it's like 4 or 5 times. But this is what our CIT consists of. One full-time CCPD officer, which is myself, 2 Nueces County Sheriff's deputies, 7 off-duty contracted police officers within the Corpus Christi Police Department, 6 qualified mental health professionals, and 1 licensed professional counselor. So the goals of CIT, if you want to hit next all the way through on this one too, is to free up patrol officers while devoting more time and effort to solving the issue, improve officer and mental health client safety, help persons with mental illness and or addictions seek or access treatment rather than place them into the criminal justice system due to illness-related behaviors. And this is something that the city manager was mentioning, where in the past, prior to crisis intervention teams, we have effectively to some degree turned our prison systems into insane asylums, where we're just sticking people into the criminal justice system who maybe could have benefited from treatment and actually stop the behavior altogether. And we act as a forum for effective problem solving regarding the interaction between the criminal justice system and the mental health care system. And a prime example of that is the Corpus Christi Police Department trains all of our officers in crisis intervention. Doesn't necessarily mean that they are a part of the crisis intervention team, but they are trained in crisis intervention and have knowledge of the resources available. Excuse me. We also improve our community's mental health system, but most importantly is we save lives. So we literally go out there and deal with people who are experiencing these extreme circumstances and coordinate with other resources to get them into treatment and get them out of that crisis. Next slide. So this is the model that we follow. This is known as the Memphis Model, which was developed in Memphis years ago, and it's been a model that agencies across the nation utilize, which is called the co-responder model. So basically, when CIT responds to a scene, it's not just a police officer. I actually have a qualified mental health professional who rides in the car with me in response to these scenes to assess the person. So on arrival, the specially trained officer and the qualified mental health professional will de-escalate the person. That's a very popular term we hear used in policing now, and that's really at our core. That's what our first initial interaction with somebody in crisis is to de-escalate that person. While we're there, we'll assess their threat to risk level so we can identify exactly what is even feasible to do with this person, and then in doing so, we'll identify their needs. Maybe this person's crisis is a result of being homeless, or maybe this is a crisis of a loss, or maybe their medication, they have not been taking it and they need assistance getting it. Next. And we use a variety of strategies and resources to assist the individual to a smooth transition out of crisis. Next. So this is the traditional police response. A crisis happens. You can hit next all the way through. Crisis happens, 911 is called, police are dispatched, officers arrive, they see this person in crisis, and they basically decide, okay, we're going to take this person to the hospital, or we're going to take this person to jail. Basically tying up resources, and sometimes isn't always the most appropriate method to assist that individual, or even the community, rather. Next. You can hit next all the way through. So this is what CIT's response looks like. A crisis happens, 911 is called. It either comes to CIT directly through dispatch, or police officers arrive on scene and request us to the scene. And these are the various different avenues that we might utilize instead of or in lieu of the jail or hospital. We may get them into outpatient mental health services. Maybe this person needs drug rehabilitation. We do have a local respite center called Pathways. Maybe shelters are an option, sober housing, transitional housing. Maybe even if it's just doing a safety plan with the family while we coordinate some other efforts outside of that. APS is a common one where we're dealing with individuals who maybe don't necessarily have family, but they're starting to develop onsets of dementia, and people are calling in on them, finding them out in public. Veterans Affairs is a common one that we use, obviously, for our veteran population. Excuse me, reunification, that's basically a program where if somebody's local, they're homeless, they have nowhere to go, but they have family in another region, and we can find somebody, or we can contact somebody in that other region who is willing to accept them, and basically iterates to us, yes, he has help on this end. If you can get him up here to us, then we'll facilitate that, as well as counseling services. Next. So CIT also conducts face-to-face follow-ups on the more aberrant and at-risk individuals in the community. So this isn't just like we meet with you, we coordinate something and we're done with you. No, if we identify that you are more at risk, or your behavior has not necessarily gotten better, we haven't been able to facilitate what it is we're trying to facilitate, then we'll continue to follow up until we come up with something to really meet the needs of that person. Next. Okay, so this is estimated cost savings through a combination of jail and hospital diversions. This is how do I best put this, because I'm not the one who developed the algorithm or matrix that they use to come up with this material, but basically it is an informed estimation based on the amount of officers that were relieved at the scene, the amount of time that person could have spent in jail, the ambulance transportation costs, the time they would have spent in the hospital. It's a cumulative amount of money that is saved. And I will say, looking at this graph, it does appear that things seem to cool down during the cooler months, which I find interesting. I don't know, I have a theory, maybe humans still slightly hibernate to some degree, but anyway, next slide. And this is just my stats for the year to date from the beginning of this year up until this point. This does not reflect the whole team, but because I do not personally keep stats on the entire team, but I do keep personal stats for myself. So year to date, 308 calls for service with a fiscal year projection of a little over 1,300. Emergency detentions, that's like an involuntary detention of a person, which are arguably actually much lower than what a patrolman who is likely responding to the same amount of calls would do, which is 29, estimated 124 by the end of the year. And anyway, on down the line, as you can see, we'll likely do around 95 jail diversions or 130 hospitalizations. Inpatient rehab, 31 for the year projected, but I believe that actually increases because I notice in the summer months we tend to take a lot more people for drug rehabilitation for whatever reason that is, I don't know. Next slide. Okay, so here I put at the top, CIT is a hot commodity. And I really feel that way. If anybody was to listen to the police radio, there is no other unit that is requested to a scene more than ours. It's an all-day thing. There's just not one single other unit that is requested to a scene more than CIT. And I do believe that crisis intervention teams are paving the way for the future in what communities expect from law enforcement and their local resources. And teamwork makes the dream work. So anyway, next slide is just questions, and if you'd like, I could tell you a story about people I've seen improve or whatever, or if you guys have any questions. Oh, sure. So I guess the first one that comes to mind, and I do have to provide this person privacy by not, mentioning their name or anything that would clearly identify them, but this young lady had been she was diagnosed bipolar. She was in a state of mania, and a lot of people may not know this, but bipolar people, or some people who experience bipolar, are at risk of using stimulating substances because the state of mania that a person who has bipolar is kind of enjoyable. You feel motivated, you feel like you're invincible, so then they start to use stimulating substances like methamphetamine, and that was this young lady's unfortunate result. And even worse, her drug dealer, for lack of a better term, lived a couple doors down. Well, anyway, when law enforcement first got the call, she was out barely clothed, running around, running amok, and they ended up doing an emergency detention on her. So we followed up with her because it seemed like a more aberrant case. And we had actually ended up getting some calls over there ourselves. And throughout time working with her, we were able to get her into the local rehab, Charlie's Place or Synacor, and she actually almost completed the program. Then it didn't work out, but we still didn't give up on her. So she got out, started using again, and we were able to get her into a sober living house, which we found worked really well for her because now she was in a group setting with other women around her same age, and she was able to somehow relate, and they kind of help each other in their recovery in those sober living homes. The point I'm trying to make, though, is she's been there now for about maybe 3 months, and she has gone from somebody with nothing to somebody who her family is starting to see that she's improving. They're actually utilizing, she's becoming a resource for others. And she has a job now. She's working at, I'm going to leave it nameless, but it is a local convenience store. And it's nice to be able to go in and see this young lady now working, and I can purchase a drink and be like, oh my God, it's you, after everything that we saw you going through. So this was a very intense effort by the entire team. Everybody was checking up on her on a regular basis. Hey, are you taking your meds? We're not forcing her meds on her, but you need to be taking them, and these kinds of things, and it just worked out. And that's just one story. There's many.
Councilman Martinez?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to commend you and your team for what you do. If you're not somebody who needs your services or a family member, most people in the community don't even know what you do. But it is so important what you do for those people and for us. It's a hard job, I know, but it's a much needed job. It's something that we really need. And the way we deal with people with mental health issues, it's evolving, and this is part of this evolution. And I think that you and your team are at the front of that, and it's a good program for others to follow. So thank you for what you do. I'm not even able to show my appreciation as much as I should for what you guys do, but I just wanted you to know that I think you're one of the most important teams that we have in our community for law enforcement, as well as for dealing with mental health. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Councilman Hunter?
Thank you. Well said, Councilman Martinez. I have a few quick questions. How's y'all's relationship and coordination with the veterans groups here in town?
They're very good. So me personally, I usually only utilize one person contact. I really love networking. And once I find somebody I like, I'm keeping you on my side. So if you call me, I'm going to help you as best I can, and I'm hoping that you'll do the same for me. So for me personally, I have no gripes. They've done nothing but outstanding service in regards to facilitating treatment for the individual that I have called about.
Okay. Well, that sounds great. If there is anything that we can do to help there to strengthen the relationship, which it already sounds like it's pretty great, please let us know.
Yes, sir.
And then one more thing. Considering our population, and I know this is a new program, just with the mental health scenarios alone, you guys have to be extremely busy, as one of your slides pointed out. What can we do to help and with that going forward?
Well, I'll tell you, there is certainly not a lack of motivation on our part. We love this. Like, everybody I work with loves this. But I think our biggest detriment is that we do not have the ability to teleport. So we can't be everywhere at once, right? We can't just be one place and then another place. So what would be ideal would be an increase in the amount of personnel. There's just, it is completely and utterly impossible for me or my team, the team, to make it to all of the calls. We simply just sometimes have to not go to them because we're already tied up on another. So more personnel would be an outstanding.
Well, I'd like to help any way I can. I mean, considering what I've been through just under a year or just over a year, please let me know what I can do to help. I'd love to be a contact for you.
Thank you, sir.
Councilman Pusley?
Yes, and I want to echo what was said here. This is a great program. Obviously, probably needs to be expanded. More, boots on the ground is certainly going to be an important thing. And I like your point about this is how policing is transitioning from the typical, policeman on the beat to a person who has to go in and act as almost a counselor, so to speak, for people who are having these crisis moments in their lives. And so to put a little perspective on that, at the county, in our county jail, on an average day, we have about 950 people incarcerated here in Nueces County in our county jail. The vast majority of those people are suffering from mental illness and drug addiction issues or a combination thereof. And so it costs $80 a day per person to house them in the county jail. So if you do the math, it's north of $20 million a year that the taxpayers in this community pay to keep people incarcerated who really and truly need to be in treatment facilities, need to have medication, need to have intervention in their lives to keep them from being involved in the revolving door of being arrested and incarcerated. So this is an extremely important program. It's something the county started to work on a few years ago, and I hope it continues to gain traction. And I hope we can actually kind of dovetail this into, Peter, into looking at not only how we help intervene in these situations, but also how we keep the tragic events from happening that we saw happen here the last few days in another part of our country, where people lost their lives because someone had one of these crisis moments. I think that's very important for us to do, not only in our public places, but in our schools, et cetera. But again, that's going to take boots on the ground. So we're going to have to work on that as we go forward. Thank you very much for what you do.
Thank you, sir.
Councilman Hernandez?
Thank you. Officer Barnes, I want to commend you on that presentation and the way you maintained it. I was very well given, and I commend you on that. I also commend your leadership for selecting you for this position. I see a very long, good career for you in this in your role.
Thank you.
That being said, I understand this funding. There's always funding issues, and we've been making efforts to try and increase the numbers of our police force. And as everyone here on the council knows, we've been trying to increase 5 per year. You know, we work that out with the city manager. However, in terms of mental health, I was going to ask if the federal funding that we're looking at receiving, the $68 million, there's some component of that could be used for a program like this to expand it, or to have, even just to look at it, our funding through our public health for mental health services, considering the pandemic did create some aspect of that in stress in people in the community. So I think if there's any opportunity we could use that funding to help in this scenario or other scenarios regarding mental health, that would be, I think, a good utilization of this funding. On another question, outside of what you're doing, I wanted to ask a little question on the Ocean Drive, or as I'd like to say it, the Ocean Drive Drag Racing Speedway. And I'm being facetious there, but I think it is really a problem that is going to manifest itself once this is completely done. And I know I'd mentioned this before, but I want to make sure that we're looking into mitigation to prevent that from happening, because I could see accidents that could kill people, and we're trying to avoid deaths as much as possible regarding that. So, if you can, please, thank you.
Yeah, we'll provide you a briefing on that from once I work with Chief Markle. We're working on some preliminary plans now for the Revive the Drive safety. We'll get you those.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Dennis?
Yeah, I just have, sorry.
Go ahead, Mayor.
Is someone speaking? I can wait.
No, go ahead, Mayor.
Okay, you'll have to pardon my voice. Officer Barnes, I just want to, again, echo what everyone has said, and thank you. I don't think we've ever had a presentation, so we really, I really appreciate it, and I know the council does as well. What you are doing every day and the team you're working with is becoming more and more critical, literally every day. I don't have to tell you that, but we're dealing with this issue in a more serious manner, again, by the day. So I just wanted you to know that we recognize that as we work towards homelessness and mental health in partnership with the county, the diocese, and other partners. But as Councilman Hunter mentioned, we have to know what it is you need in order to give you those tools. So I appreciate you telling us that. And it's always about manpower. I mean, it always has been. And so I just want you to know that we take that very seriously. And in moving forward, we will continue to do so to see how we can help the force overall, but especially in your department with this issue being so critical. So thank you very much for being here today, and wonderful presentation.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Councilman Martinez?
For people in the community that want to help, are there volunteer opportunities? Do y'all do fundraisers? Do you take donations? What can people outside do to help you guys?
I could certainly tell you that I'd have to follow up on that question in regards to assisting, especially with funding. It's not something I'm directly involved in, but I do know that the local mental health authority and their directors do have some private donors, I believe, that assist in the overall mission. I just don't know exactly how that goes about.
What about volunteers?
As far as volunteers, I definitely would say that they can certainly reach out to the local mental health authority and find out if there are any. There are certainly volunteer positions. I mean, the local mental health authority has people there who are they consider peers, so somebody who may have actually experienced a mental illness crisis in the past actually works there even sometimes on a volunteer basis, so that they can be somebody who's relatable to a person who is in crisis, as well as reaching out to the local drug rehabilitation clinic like Synacor, or otherwise known as Charlie's Place, may have some volunteer opportunities as well. And then lastly, our shelters in this city certainly could need volunteers all the time. They serve a very large population, so.
Thank you.
Councilman Pusley?
Yeah, just to follow up a little bit on funding, and maybe Councilman Martinez can add something to this. Before I left the county, Peter, Judge Neal had committed $2 million a year from the hospital district to help with this exact problem for intervention with people who are having either substance abuse or mental health issues. And I don't know where that's gone. Is that still in progress, or that is a question worth asking if it's still not?
It is happening. I can tell you that.
Okay.
Yeah, there is a hospital. There is a board for that with the hospital district.
Right.
In fact, I believe it is led partially by Judge Barbara Canales, and there is an initiative, or there is certainly some intention on expanding this program, from what I'm being told.
Good, great, thank you.
Councilman Smith, Councilman Molina, do you have anything to add? Okay, I guess a couple of things. You know, I had the pleasure of testifying before the State Affairs House Committee, and one of the bills that was brought before on the agenda was that of providing penalties for communities that defund the police. And Austin specifically was the target. And there were several people that spoke from Austin, and a lot of that was the reallocation of funds to provide services for crisis intervention. And you know, I'm so glad to hear that the leadership here, Senior Officer Barnes and Chief Markle and your team had the foresight to do this in 2018 to be able to provide these resources. The term that I heard from the Austin police chief is that we need to transition from being enforcers to guardians. And you know, it's truly gratifying to hear that we in Corpus Christi, we're always compared to those big metropolitan communities, you know, San Antonio, Austin, Dallas, and Houston, and I'm proud to say that we're leading the charge. So thank you for what you do, and thank you, Chief Markle, and thank you for all your team.
And on that note, Councilman Barrera, just so y'all know, waited there for nearly half a day to an entire day and had the opportunity to speak at 4:30 in the morning to support y'all. So just wanted to throw that out there to make sure that you get a little love.
It was on another item, but thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, sir.
This is Councilmember Molina. I'm here with Greg Smith in Austin today, and hopefully we don't have to wait as long as you did here. We're going to be testifying on some bills ourselves today, but just wanted to make a quick comment about the presentation. I'm very appreciative of the leadership, and I'm glad that we are moving forward with this. And of course, you have our full support. Anything that we can do to help, we are certainly on board. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for Senior Officer Barnes? Okay, Peter, I just have one more thing with regard to the volleyball.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much, Senior Officer.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Yeah, wonderful job. I understand that there's another tournament later on in April that is, it's the Southland Conference. It's a much bigger deal.
Yes.
So, you know, just conveyed to, you know, Interim Director Munoz and Dr. Young. I've heard great things about what transpired yesterday. So I'm really pleased and enthusiastic about the next tournament coming up.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point, Councilman. Yeah, and what the Mayor Pro Tem's referring to is yesterday a city team met via WebEx with Texas A&M Corpus Christi leadership, including their sports director or athletic director, John Palumbo. So we reached out to them to say, hey, we want to make you guys, we want to help you out. We want to get some people down there. And so this week will be an important event, this Friday, Saturday, but this is going to give us a good first-time run at another event that's coming up, as the councilman just said, later on. So there'll be 2 events coming up. So again, it's free entertainment. It's college entertainment, so it helps people aspire to want to go to college, our local boys and girls there, or young adults. but it also exposes a beautiful venue that we have, which is McGee Beach, Water's Edge Park, and the near downtown. So it's a real great way to have win-wins for our community. So we're glad to have reached out to them, and we look forward to Friday, Saturday, and then the next event coming up as well.
Excellent, excellent. Councilman Pusley?
Yeah, so, Peter, back to Ocean Drive, just a quick question. Is this reconstruction on Ocean Drive, are they doing subsurface as well, or is this, so like sewer, water?
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, nothing below the asphalt. They are doing some, it's mostly flat work and the road work.
Okay.
So the important thing, though, it is a complete milling, so it's taking up 6 inches of all that old street and putting in 6 inches of brand-new asphalt. We are fixing sidewalks, broken curbs, some lighting is being fixed, but nothing below the surface, so no water, sewer, or any of that nature.
Do we have any issues in that area with that, or?
No, no. As the infrastructure, Councilman Smith reminded me one time, probably dates back to the late 60s, 70s.
Yeah.
So it's close to where we may need to replace it, but if we did a massive project like that, it would take probably a decade of funding and time. So in the meantime, we'll have that nice road surface that a lot of people drive over every day. And,
right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, good deal.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you.
Mr. Martinez, your light's still on, or, okay. All right, thank you very much, Mr. Zanoni.
Okay, yes, sir, thank you. And thanks to Officer Barnes. We appreciate you being here, and your command staff as well. Chief Markle, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on then to board and committee appointments.
Yes, sir.
So Ms. Huerta, I guess we'll start with Board of Adjustments. We have one vacancy.
Yes, sir. There's one vacancy representing the category of alternate. So you do have 2 individuals to choose from, and nominations are in order if there are any.
All right, I'll open the floor to nominations.
I'd like to nominate Graves.
Danny Graves, okay.
All right, are there any other nominations? Okay, Madam, Ms. Huerta, am I able to ask that we, by acclamation, ask for a motion and a second to be able to,
If you like.
further nominations?
Yeah, we can close nominations, and then you can do that, sir.
All right, thank you. So therefore, we close the nomination. So is there a motion and a second to appoint Mr. Graves?
So moved.
All right, I think, was that a second from Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Okay, great.
All right. A
Thank
motion
you.
by Mr. Molina and Councilman Molina, and a second by Councilman Smith. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All right, congratulations, Mr. Graves. All right, Ms. Huerta, then we will move on to Committee for Persons with Disabilities.
Yes, sir. So the committee for persons with disabilities, they have 5 vacancies, and per council policies, this board can make recommendations to the council for appointments or reappointments. And to that end, the committee is recommending the reappointments of Anthony Zoccolillo and Vanessa Nesbitt, and you do have their attendance rates in your packets. And they're also recommending the new appointments of Jennifer Gracia, Dirk Hillard, and Jennifer Scott. So so we can make nominations, or you can go with the committee's recommendations if that's the will of the council.
All right, are there any further nominations? All right, then, then we can close the nominations, and I will accept a motion to accept the committee's recommendation. There's a motion. There's a motion by Councilman Hunter. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second by Councilman Hernandez. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All right. Well, congratulations to those individuals.
Thank you.
All right. Now, I know we have one here that may be a little tricky. A lot of popularity.
Yes.
It's the Island Strategic Action Committee.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to recognize Councilmember Smith. Well, I tell you what, go ahead.
Okay.
Ms. Huerta.
Just so I can explain. So the last board is the Island Strategic Action Committee. We have 11 vacancies on this committee, and they represent the following categories: 1 Mustang Island representative, 4 at-large representatives, 1 professional engineer, 1 residential property owner, 1 environmental group, one construction contractor, one realtor, and one commercial property owner. So staff was recommending the postponement of the environmental group and commercial property owner for further recruitment, but as you state, Mayor Pro Tem Barrera, Councilmember Smith would like to make a proposal for the council if he's online.
Councilmember Smith?
Okay, he should, I think he is somewhere, but I can, so
Sure,
I
sure.
know, I understand his intent, so what,
Okay, can you hear me?
there he is,
There
okay,
he is.
good.
Okay, thank you. What I would like to propose is seeking reappointment among Alex, Daniel Brown, Jay Gardner, Tommy Phillips. But in Jay Gardner's position, reappoint the environmental.
So,
He is the chair of the Habitat today, Fish for Tomorrow with the CCA.
so what he's proposing is Jay Gardner, we can't hear him, but he's proposing that Jay Gardner be realigned from the professional engineer position into the environmental group position. And Mr. Gardner did indicate on his application that that is a category that he is eligible for. And so instead of postponing that position today, what we'd like to do is first handle the reappointment. So reappoint Mr. Gardner, and then if it be the will of the council, we can then realign Mr. Gardner into that environmental position. And then that would create we can do that, and then hopefully he can explain the other step he'd like to do. So maybe we can take that first.
Okay, so I guess what is being presented is to realign Mr. Jay Gardner into the environmentalist slot. Is there
Yes,
a
sir.
motion to do so?
Second.
There's a motion by Commissioner. There's a motion by Mike and a second by Mike. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign? All right, the motion carries.
Okay.
So does that mean that we've reappointed him then?
Well, we just said realign, so now can we take the reappointments?
So
We'll
we're
just
gonna-
include them in the group. Mr. Alex, Mr. Brown, Mr. Gardner, and Mr. Kurt, so we could reappoint them also.
Okay, so,
Move to reappoint.
all right, there's a motion to reappoint by Councilmember Molina. Is there a second? There's a second by Councilmember Pusley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, so now that leaves us with new appointments. So based on the realignment that we just did, that leaves us, it's 2 at-large, 1 residential property owner, 1 construction contractor, 1 realtor, and now 1 engineer. So we can take those category by category, that would be best. So at this time, it would be in order, Mayor Pro Tem, to seek nominations for the at-large positions, those 2 at-large positions.
All righty. Are there any?
I would like to nominate Roy Kuhn and Melanie Salinas.
Second.
So Roy, I'm sorry, Kuhn?
Yeah.
Would like to nominate Dotson Lewis and Kaylin Paxson.
At large.
These are for at-large.
At large.
Yeah.
I'd like to nominate Kim Pendergraft.
Oops. Got blurry, Norma, for some reason. Oh, there it goes. Pendergraft. Okay, looks like we're going to vote.
Any further nominations? And
Oh,
we'll
I'm
close the
sorry.
nominations?
Yes,
All
sir,
right,
that's
and I
right.
guess, Ms. Huerta, I guess we'll either call a roll as to who.
Yeah, do you want, I can call the roll.
2.
Yes, sir, pick 2. Okay, so starting, I have you first, actually, on this list, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
I'll choose Kuhn and Salinas.
Okay. Kuhn and Salinas. All right, next would be Mr. Hernandez.
Lewis and Paxton.
Okay. Next, Mr. Hunter.
Lewis, Pendergraft.
Okay, next is Mr. Lerma.
Salinas and Paxton.
Salinas and Paxson, okay. Next we have Mr. Martinez.
Paxton and Pendergraft.
Paxson and Pendergraft, okay. Mr. Molina.
Coons and Lewis. I'm sorry,
Salinas.
Coons and Salinas.
Kuhn and Salinas, okay, got it. Okay, and then Mr. Pesley. Kuhn and Lewis. Okay, Mr. Smith
Kuhn and Salinas.
and Mayor Wahardo.
Pendergraft and Salinas.
Okay, so Salinas has it, and in the runoff will be, wow. We're gonna have to do that all over for one. Yeah.
Kuhn has 4.
Oh, Kuhn has 4.
Oh, okay, there you go.
So I guess we'd have to figure out Lewis, Paxton, and Pendergraft first, because they all have 3. It's a tie. Does that make sense?
We're only electing 2 places, aren't we?
Yeah, but the only one who has it outright is Salinas.
But so
Kuhn
does
has
Kuhn.
4.
Kuhn has 4. Salinas has 5.
Right, so Salinas has it, but Kuhn has 4, right?
Oh,
You need 5 votes
that's-
to get it,
oh, that's right.
yeah.
That's what's throwing me off.
Well,
You gotta have 5.
Yes, because it's present and voting, everybody's present, so yes.
Yeah.
Mhm. So that's why I was saying we would do a runoff between all those 3 people, I guess, unless somebody wants to change, but,
Ms. Wertz, I'd just like to make a comment. I'm planning on nominating Dotson Lewis for the resident position.
oh, I
supporting
see.
Resident position.
Okay,
Then with that, I'll remove mine for Lewis and put it on Kuhn.
okay, very good. So it's Salinas and Kuhn who get the 2 at-large, very good. All right, so now we go with the residential property owner.
I would like to nominate Dotson Lewis.
Okay. Okay, are there any other nominations? I guess?
Any other nominations? All right, if there are no further nominations, then we'll close the nominations, and I'll accept a motion and a second to...
So moved.
There's a motion by
Second.
Councilman Hernandez and a second by...
Mr. Lerma.
Councilman Lerma. All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All right, congratulations, Mr. Lewis.
Okay, next we have the construction contractor position.
I think we
And-
just have one available.
Yes, sir, that's right.
I'd like to nominate Robert Christi.
Okay, and he's the only he's the
All
only
right,
person
so then
eligible.
Let's close the nominations, and then can I hear a motion to accept the... All right, there's a motion by Councilmember Pusley, and I believe a second by Councilman Hunter. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All right, congratulations.
Okay, next is the realtor position.
I'd like to nominate William Ulark.
How many positions are available?
There's just one, sir,
Just the
one
one,
realtor. Yes, I think there's 3, is it 2 people who, 2.
All right, any other
So who
nominations?
nominated Ularek.
Okay, since there being no further nominations, we'll close the nominations. Is there a motion and a second to appoint Ms. Ulark? All right, there's a motion by Councilmember Pusley. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second by Councilman Hunter. Please signify, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All right, congratulations.
And the last position, sir, is the engineer. That's the one that was vacated by Mr. Gardner when he was realigned.
Don't we need to go out and further recruitment since we didn't have any applied as an engineer?
For the engineering slot?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to postpone.
We do. Do you have to apply because Mr. Grimsbow is a professional engineer?
So, Mr. Smith, Dan Grimsbow is on the list. He did not indicate on his application that he was eligible for that engineering slot, but in his resume, which is part of his application, he lists that he is an engineer. So he has disclosed that he's an engineer, so he is eligible for that position if someone would like to nominate him. So we didn't show him on your list for categories, but we know he is, and it's on his resume, so.
As long as Ms. Huerta says we can do so.
Well, we also check with legal, so yes. So we're all in line, if that's all right with the council. So, Mr. Smith.
Is there a motion to appoint Mr. Grimsbow?
I would like to appoint Mr. Grimsbow, so I make that motion.
Second.
All right, there's a motion by Councilmember Molina and a second by Councilman Lerma. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All right, congratulations, Mr. Grimsbow.
Okay, so the only position that we are postponing then is the commercial property owner. Thank you very much, council.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Huerta, for keeping us clean.
You're right. I would have hated to move on this.
Okay, so before we move on to consent agenda, I'm going to take a point of personal privilege as the Mayor Pro Tem and as a buckerator and move to item number 23.
23?
Ordinance authorizing a special events agreement with the Buccaneer Commission Incorporated for Buck Days Festival 2021. Interim Director Munoz, thank you so much.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. My name is Sarah Munoz, Interim Director of Parks and Recreation. Item number 23 is an ordinance authorizing a special events agreement with the Buccaneer Commission for Buck Days Festival 2021 and related activities to be held on April 29th, 2021 through May 9th, 2021, to allow for the use of city property, including Shoreline Boulevard between IH-37 and Resaca, as well as the barge dock and Circle Drive adjacent to the American Bank Center, with the payment to the city for cost of services not to exceed $39,449. Here to provide an update on an overview of the Buck Days is Mr. Johnny Filippo, President and CEO of Buck Commission.
Thank you, Sarah, and I'll go as quick as possible for you, but a little over a year ago to date, many of you remember we canceled or postponed Buck Days, and we're excited to say we are able to move forward this year with the 83-year-old tradition. It's just going to look a little different than it would in its full scale. Next slide, please. So April 29th through May 9th, we will host Buccaneer Days. And in doing so, we've really took the year off to look at ways to not only look to the future, but how can we grow our event. So obviously we'll have the carnival, the traditional dunking of the mayor, rodeo, those things, but we were able to make some new partnerships with professional bull riding, an organization called WCRA, and then Wings Over South Texas is going to be a part of the tradition this year as well, and we'll dive into more of this here in a second. So next slide, please. Okay. But before we dive into that, I do want to talk through kind of some of the shifts we've had to make because of COVID-19. And you'll see event reductions, cancelizations, and the reason for that is focusing on not only the health and safety, but can we financially do this when we're talking about social distancing, reduction in capacities, and doing the things that the health and safety of our community requires. So when you look at this list, barbecue on the bay was one of those things that just didn't make sense to do when you're talking about large crowds coming together this year. Treasure Island shopping, which is a new feature we were going to add in 2020 with the 75,000 square foot exhibit hall of vendors coming from all over to sell their products to consumers. It's a crowded indoor space, so we said we better hold off on that. The junior parade, also another staple that we're postponing until 2022. And then the night parade itself, we will have a night parade. We just aren't going to take it down the 2+ mile route that we're used to, and we'll talk more on that here shortly. At the rodeo, Corpus Christi, we eliminate the concerts this year, and part of that's financially, but also being able to ensure people stay in their seat and aren't moving about in large crowds wanting to dance and have fun. And then the air show, we planned on in November announcement of a big grand air show. It's still going to be big and grand. It's just not going to be 20,000 people packed into the footprint at Buck Days that we would love to have for that event. Our outdoor stage where people like to gather for music, that will be postponed as well. And then the carnival we'll touch on here shortly is a reduction in size this year. But we are excited. This sounds like a lot of reductions, but you're going to have a really great event despite all of that. So next slide, please. This is the festival side area you can see, and we made the effort really coming out of 2019 to focus all of our efforts around the American Bank Center. We weren't able to highlight that in 2020, but this year we're going to. So you'll see the carnival on the parking lots adjacent to the American Bank Center, in the rodeo activities as well as other arena activities. And then you can see the footprint of the air show that will take place that first weekend of the event. But this kind of gets you a lay of the land. And when we're back to full scale in 2022, we'll essentially be utilizing every inch of the facility for some form or fashion of the event over the 11-day run of that as well. Next slide, please. The Stripes Carnival is a staple of the event. It will go on in 2021 with some significant changes. We're reducing the number of rides. We're spreading out the footprint to where there's at least 20 feet of space between each of the rides in the carnival. There'll be line queuing that goes on, additional sanitation. When you get on a ride, you'll be offered a wipe to clean any touch points. And then when you get off, there's hand sanitation as well. And Wade shows our carnival operator in your packet. There's a pretty significant plan he's put together and has been implemented. He's already done the Delaware State Fair. He'll do the Florida State Fair before us, and has really been a leader in this industry of getting it back to work. So he's taken a lot of the ideas that you'd see at Disney World or Fiesta Texas and implemented those for our carnival. So we're excited about that part of it moving forward. Next slide, please. Wings Over South Texas, NAS Corpus Christi approached us this fall and asked if there was any interest in us producing this event, and we really see it as a chance to bring two great traditions together. It's not going to be at the scale in terms of crowds of people that we would like to see on the Bayfront this year, but you're going to see almost a 3-hour air show right there from the marina to the American Bank Center. The area we'll focus on as part of Buck Days is a limited socially distanced viewing area for VIPs, as well as corporations that want to take on areas on the barge dock. But the public, the neat thing about this one, Chris Six is going to televise it so you can watch from your house if you don't feel comfortable being out. But then we're going to broadcast the announcing of it on our social media channels so you could watch from North Beach to Cole Park, much like you would the fireworks display, and enjoy a safe, socially distanced outdoor event. So for us, it's a really exciting opportunity and one that we're anticipating working with the base for really every other year moving forward on having this as part of Buck Days. So we're really excited about that opportunity. Next slide, please. When you talk about the arena events, this year we have brought forward a partnership with Professional Bull Riding. You might see them on CBS on Saturdays and Sundays. So we're excited about having those guys come compete in our arena the first weekend. We actually stole their model for arena shows. They've been doing this across the nation all during COVID, and you can see the red dots that we have on this screen. Basically, groups of no more than 10 coming together can sit together, but there'll be 2-seat spacing between every group in that model. So we think it's going to be a safe, socially distanced programming for not just PBR, but our parade as well as the rodeo. So when you talk size and scope, normally a sold-out show's 7,000. This year, a sold-out show's about 2,500. So with that, we've made some adjustments. Next slide, please. PBR was slated to be 1 day. We're making it 2 days, so April 30th and May 1st, we'll have that great bull riding event. We're calling it the Buck Day Shootout, and Coastal Bend Chevy stepped up to the plate for that. So it's about a 2 to 3 hour bull riding competition. If you've never been, come check it out. It's a really neat opportunity for us. Next slide, please. When you talk the parade, we're all used to the 3 mile or so route of the night parade. We thank our Buck Raider friends for their efforts on helping put that on. This year it will be focused only in arena and made for television. So we will have probably a reduced number of entrants, a very select few, a select number of bands participating, but we're selling a very affordable ticket to come watch one of those 2,500 in attendance watch in person, and then Chris Six will broadcast it live. So where in the past you've seen a band march through the route for a brief second as I walk by you, here we'll actually slow it back down, make it a more of a performance like the old stadium show for folks, and really showcase those kids that are good to our community here on that. So it's kind of making lemonade out of lemons and still having that great tradition that is the night parade. Next slide, please. And then last but not least, the Rodeo Corpus Christi, it's grown significantly. We're now one of the top 10 rodeos out there. We made a switch to an organization called WCRA this year, who is aligned with professional bull riders. And the main reason for that, we were able to partner in a downturn event world that we're living in. We're able to grow our prize money to over $500,000. That would put us as one of the top 5 rodeos this year in the nation when you look at what events have had to cancel and so forth. But the real catch, not just for Buck Days, but for the city as a whole, is we're going to be broadcast on CBS nationally. So estimated about 1 million viewers will tune in to that broadcast that actually happened in June. So the Sunday performance of our rodeo will basically be a commercial for our city as well. Again, we mentioned we're not doing concerts this year, but we think we'll have the very best in the sport of rodeo and a great production for that. And then the last slide, please, is we're all about education, and this event is one that we actually made the decision just today to not move forward with it for this year. We're going to postpone our robotics and Lego League competition to 2022. It's a partnership. We've teamed up with First in Texas and Citgo helping bring that to us. And when you talk about really trying to bring students from all over South Texas to compete in this, it just wasn't the right time to make that happen. But the organization's all about education. This event will be on the docket for 2022, and we hope to be over the $1.4 million mark in scholarship giving after this year's event. We're committed to supporting the local community with scholarships. Our King and Queen Leadership Program, we hope y'all get the chance to interact with them during Buck Days, but there's 20 high school seniors that are competing for $62,000 in scholarship dollars right now that are super kids. So with that, I'll stand to answer any questions you might have. But I do want to say the city team is awesome. Sarah, thank you for your leadership in getting this contract to us, and really the partnership with both Chief Markle, Chief Rocha, and all the city departments on making Buck Days happen. We couldn't do it without all of them. So thank you all.
All right. Are there any questions? Johnny, you're very thorough. That never happens.
Council member, excuse me.
Yes,
Yeah.
Mayor.
Okay, sorry. Johnny, I want to thank you for giving us this report and just for also working with everything you guys are dealing with and continuing to make this looks like it's going to be, I know it's going to be a whole lot of fun. But thank you, because I know y'all are working around a whole lot of challenges here, and you're still bringing this. It's a historic, event for Corpus Christi. So thank you for doing that. And I also want to remind the council and let the public know that this will be the first year ever that the council, I think, that the council, city council will be on one float all together, which I think is fun and exciting for all of us to be, opposed to vehicles. Nothing wrong with the vehicles, but I think it shows unity and a strong team. And I think, again, floats are always really fun. So anyway, thank you for that. And I'm glad you didn't mention anything about the dunking of the mayor, because I've got to do some homework on where exactly I'm going to be dunked
No,
and how that all works.
No, absolutely. We look forward to that great tradition, Mayor, and we hope you have your voice back in time for that.
I know. Me too.
Our goal this year, the CVB is doing their hospitality event that features the hospitality industry on the Thursday night of Buck Days at the Omni. So our plan is to actually have you walk the plank right in front of the Omni with that whole crowd watching on April 29th. But I think we've got a calendar date to discuss that more. So we appreciate you being a good sport for continuing that great tradition.
Great. Thank you.
Mayor, please keep in mind that Councilman Hernandez will be the mayor pro tem.
That is correct.
Yeah, I'll be there.
It is within your purview to farm that out to the mayor pro tem if you so choose, Mayor.
Exactly.
Mayor Pro Tem, I
I'll
just have
remember
one
that.
question.
Councilman Lerma?
I just have one question. The safety of the people out there, are masks going to be required, or how are we going to wind up handling this, especially on the indoor functions?
You bet. For all the indoor functions, ASM Global is still requiring masks at this time. So we plan on doing that. We're going to do our best to enforce masks at the outdoor events that are within our footprint as well. And I failed to mention Dr. Dante Gonzalez has been a huge help to us in terms of running all of this by him and getting input. So he's been excellent to make sure we're following the right methods on everything. But
I'm just happy that we're bringing something back to the people to whether they can enjoy it. I mean, we're not there yet, but we're getting there, slowly but surely, you know. I appreciate everything you're doing to put this together.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I have one more thing to add for staff. Once again, as a buckerator, one of the big frustrations has been we've yet to get a multi-year agreement. And I know it's been talked about and talked about and talked about. We had a pandemic. So have we put together a timeline so that way we can quit kicking that can down the road? Do we anticipate, Dr. Young, of when we were going to be able to have this multi-year agreement of this 83-year-old tradition that probably is not going anywhere anytime soon? Do you anticipate when you'll be able to have that put together?
Yes, sir. We had spoke with Johnny about that earlier when I first arrived. We had discovered that the process for getting this contract executed was a protracted process, and we decided that we was going to prioritize first getting this contract completed since we were within 30 or 40 days of the event kicking off. Then once we get the event completed, we're going to go ahead and return to a discussion about a multi-year contract.
Okay. So I'm hoping that before the final quarter of this year, we'll have one in place.
Shouldn't be a problem, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right. Does anybody have? Councilman Hernandez, you have your light on?
Yes. Thank you. What day is the mayor supposed to get dunked?
April 29th.
I may be out of town that day.
I don't think it's a dunking. It's a gentle walking off of the plank. I'm not diving.
Yeah. Anyway, we did get the letter on the indoor parade. I just wanted to ask you some questions on that. Is it entirely going to be just kind of going in circles inside the American Bank Center?
So we're going to slow it down so the floats can really get their time to shine, and Chris Six will be broadcasting and narrating it live to the masses. So we're encouraging those families that otherwise might set up and barbecue on the parade route all day to do that from home. And as we get the performing acts in, such as bands and drill teams, we're going to stop those and let those folks perform for a few minutes to the audience in the building as well as on TV for that. So.
And I apologize, I stepped out for a minute, but all the competitions with like barbecue and brisket and all that, are you gonna still allow the tents to be set up? And
No, sir, that's the part at the very beginning, barbecue on the bay, that we
just-
just felt it wasn't something we could make happen this year. It's an awesome time, and
probably the best part.
that's the part that I've caught the most grief from folks on.
Yeah,
But
I can see that.
we'll be back with it next year. So.
All right. Well, can't say I'm not disappointed, but I am disappointed. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Johnny. Keep up the good work. We appreciate you. All right, is there a,
Mayor, can I just add one thing? Sorry, just, I want to commend Johnny and the the Buccaneers Commission for really stepping it up with COVID protocol. We've had some requests to do street closures downtown recently, but we denied them for the reason of persons being too close and not having the proper protocol. But the Buck Days has done a great job in going above and beyond to keep the community safe as we wind down the pandemic. So I want to thank him and help the community understand that examples of the Buck Days are ones that we need to follow as we get past the pandemic. Just wanted to add that comment. Thank you.
excellent, excellent. Ms. Munoz, do you have anything else?
Yes, sir. Mayor Pro Tem, if there aren't any more questions, staff recommends the approval of the ordinance authorizing the special events for Buck Days.
All right. All right, so there is a motion from Councilmember Hunter and a second from Councilmember Lerma. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Johnny. Okay, so then we will move back to the consent agenda, items 2 through 16. Are there any items that are requested to be pulled from the consent agenda for discussion or to be tabled?
Mayor, yes, sir, Mayor. Staff would like to pull from the agenda and put on a future meeting, item number 6.
Okay.
Item number 6, yes.
Councilman Hernandez?
Yes, I'd like to pull item number 12 and number 14.
Number 14. All right. Do I hear a motion then for items 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 13, 15, and 16? All right, there's a motion by Councilmember Lerma. Is there a second? There's a second by Councilmember Martinez. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. All right, the consent agenda passes. Okay, so for item number 12, who will be,
Hello, Mayor Pro Tem. It's Peter Collins, CIO, City of Corpus Christi.
all right, thank you, Peter.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Councilman
Okay,
Hernandez.
and Peter, this is more a question in terms of finance and the airport specifically, and I'd bring this to the attention. I want to bring this out because of where this is being paid for from. You have this coming out of professional services funding. However, it looks like this should be coming out of your telephone funding, which is a different line item. It's account number 530200. Now, you don't have the funding in there, but, I mean, you're leaving it in professional services, which skews it for the future in terms of how much you're spending money out of there. So just as the decision-making process, and this might be finance as well, as to how this, why you're making this, paying for it out of here instead of transferring it to telephone.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. The reason we're taking it out of there is we're going to reimburse ourselves with the CARES Act funding. So it really doesn't matter where we pull it from, because as soon as we pay for it, we're going to be asking for reimbursement from the FAA in our current CARES grant.
The reason I say this is because in terms of how we do budgeting, a lot of times you look at your previous budget and just kind of do a copy and paste instead of going through the line items. right? So if this is going to be an ongoing expense, or if they're going to have future expenses in this area, it's going to make your professional services account look bigger than it should.
Yes, sir.
Right?
I understand.
And
This won't be an ongoing.
I get that. And what I want to avoid is professional services being a slush fund like it has been used in the past in other departments. And so that's why I say if we're going to be using it out of a specific fund, it should be transferred to that fund and used out of that fund for reference. And this is specifically so we don't use this catch-all professional services as that slush fund.
Councilman, it's not, we don't have, there's no slush fund, just to make the community be aware. So this is a professional service line item.
I get it.
It'll be reversed. The entry's going to be reversed. And so if we didn't spend anything out of that, it'll be zero at the end of the day.
Correct.
So for historical purposes, there won't be any, they're going to spend the money.
Okay, so what do we have scheduled to use that money for that we're not using it for? Or is it going to be used for something?
So we have some professional services contracts with Landrum & Brown, for example, and we are doing our very best effort to not spend that money this year. It was already included in the budget. There's a not to exceed amount. We'll be revising the budget this year. This is Tyler and I's first full year at the airport, so now we kind of know what we need and what we don't need. So we will definitely be going line item by line item this year.
Okay, so that's specifically what I was trying to get at, right? I don't want us to say, okay, this is what we spent last year. We're going to spend the exact same amount next year in the same budget items.
Yeah, these guys are doing pretty much a zero-based budgeting as they're new. And is this your first or second budget? Yeah.
Well, I was here for the last year's budget, but just the tail end of it. It was already
they were
kind
here
of done.
towards the end, so they're scrubbing the budget pretty closely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that being said, I'm going to be looking at professional services. I mean, or what is it?
Yeah, fees to pro. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
We want to, this is something I complained about last year, and specifically it was a utilities issue, and where we pulled money from there to use it for something specific that was not professional services. Okay, so I want to make sure that we're looking at those, what could be utilized, and I understand they're not slush funds, but what could be utilized for them. And I want to make sure we're identifying those funds properly. So that's why I brought that up.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. And with that, if there are no other questions, I'll make a motion to approve.
All right, there's a motion by Councilmember Hernandez. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Commissioner Pusley, go ahead.
So Peter, I want to ask a question because this keeps coming up and I'm a little confused. Do you do internal budget transfer orders?
Yes, we do. So within a departmental budget, if that's what you're referring to, a department can move funds from one line item to another as the year progresses.
Okay.
Things change. The budget is it's a future guide on how we'll spend dollars and provide service. But things like an extreme weather event that we had in February that's totally unanticipated may need a department to move funds from one account to another. And that's within the realm of the charter. That's allowed by the charter. So our finances are governed by the city charter, and we follow them to the law. So you can move within a department. You can't move between departments necessarily.
So why don't you just share those budget change orders with the council?
You don't want that level of information. The city council needs to be at the high policy level. It's available. You can access it online right now today, but we would give you stuff like this every month. You'd go through. I'm not sure the value of what it would do.
I'm not sure I would do it, but there may be other council members here who'd want to do that.
Well, our system's available, and you don't want to get we have a professional team here, Councilman. For the whole council.
I'm not questioning your ability to do your job.
Right.
Don't misunderstand me.
Okay.
At the county, we approved every budget change order.
Yeah.
They came to the commissioners court meeting every month when we had a meeting, and we very seldom ever had a question on any of them. And in fact, we moved that item to our consent agenda item, but they were always presented in our packet so that if you had the wherewithal and you just really had nothing to do at midnight, you could go through and read all the budget change orders.
Yeah.
It's kind of like reading the check register.
Right. Well, we have the check register, but we're a different form of government than the county.
No, I realize that too. I'm just asking a question. So
yeah, it would be a voluminous amount of information that I'm not sure would really benefit the council in your day-to-day policy decisions.
It's certainly not
going
going to benefit me, but I just wanted to ask that question.
Okay.
Thank
All
you
right.
very much.
Thank you.
All right, so there's been a motion by Councilman Hunter and a second, Ms. Huerta, by who?
Had a motion by Councilmember Hernandez, a second by Hunter.
My apologies.
Yes, sir.
All right, so a motion by Councilmember Hernandez and a second by Councilman Hunter. All those in approval, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposition, same sign. Motion carries. All right, thank you. Item number 14, agenda item number 14, Mr. Hernandez, Mr. Jeff, Mr. Jeff.
Edmonds.
Edmonds, there you go. Had a little,
Look, the reason I brought this up, and I wanted just to make sure that we're transparent about this, in terms of, because this happened a couple of weeks ago, in terms of not selecting the low bidder. Now, this is a little bit different from that one. The dollar amount is, I think, $11,000 difference. It's not a huge significant amount, but I just want to kind of get your explanation as to the reasons why we didn't select this particular company. So it's all out in the open specifically. I couldn't find anything about this company online. Might have been one of the issues. But anyway, I'll let you explain.
Okay. Jeff Edmonds, Director of Engineering Services. This is a project to install gas collection and control piping systems at Cefa Valenzuela. And as part of the bid, and this is all bids, we require a minimum amount of experience from the contractor. And on this one, the minimum experience was 5 years as an operating business and having experience specifically with gas collection systems. In the statement of experience from this contractor, they showed only one reference, and they didn't fill out any project experience related. So we just felt like they had not demonstrated by a long shot having relevant project experience, and working as a general contractor for the owner. It seemed like they had done subcontract work possibly in the past, but we just didn't feel like they met the minimum requirements of the statement of experience.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Edmonds. Like I said, I just want us to be as transparent as possible when we're not selecting the lowest bidder.
Yes, sir. Yeah, and Councilman, we put it in the caption just in case the general public reads the caption, but it says here that they did not demonstrate the required experience by not filling out the statement of experience in the bid packet because they didn't have relevant experience.
That's
Right.
the only thing we can conclude.
Right,
Yes, sir.
and
Yeah,
like
we-
I said, I wanted to make sure that was communicated properly and
Yeah.
we recorded.
No, we appreciate you
And
doing so. Thank you.
that was just, to cover us on that aspect. If there are no other questions, I'll make a motion to approve.
all right.
This is Greg Smith. I have a question.
Yes, sir, Mr. Smith.
Thank you. So I'm still a little bit concerned about this. We have all these unresponsive bidders on there. What are we doing pre-construction to catch them before they make the bid? That they're well aware if they don't have the experience, they're not going through the time and effort of getting a bid, and then we reject them as unresponsive.
All I can say, Mr. Smith, is clearly called out in the bid documents. And the only thing I can conclude is that, the bidders must think somehow we're not serious with what we say in the
Yeah.
request for bids.
Right, that plus Councilman Smith, this is Peter. We do pre-bid conferences where bidders are allowed to come to a meeting where we explain the bid. They can ask questions. There's questions that can be asked after the fact, and follow-up is in written formats given to them all. So, is there anything else, Josh, you want to add to that? Or Josh, our interim finance purchasing managers here.
Yeah, Josh Cronley, interim assistant director for finance. I just want to say, yes, we do have pre-bid conferences in which we go over all the details. This particular company did not attend the pre-bid conference, and that was something that we did a post recommendation meeting with Thompson Construction to discuss why we were recommending to you all to declare them non-responsive bidder. And we explained to them the situation, and we made them aware that, and they had testified that next time they'll make sure they attend any pre-bid conferences so they can have a better understanding of the expectation.
Did they comment at all about the experience or lack thereof?
You know, they made mention to the fact that they'll do a better job documenting it next time. They felt, based off the parameters we had listed, that they didn't have the experience, so they left that form blank. In meeting with the legal team, just because somebody leaves something blank, they did make the submission themselves. It's not a disqualification. That's why we have to bring it to City Council and ask you guys to declare them non-responsive, because it is something they did complete. They just didn't have the adequate experience to be able to submit.
I just hope we reinforce and maybe at the conferences that, we do declare a lot non-responsive on there. It just, there's a lot of time, effort, and money involved in putting a bid together, and it's always disappointing to see us going to a second low bidder with it without the bid. Never should have come in the first place. It's kind of, I'd like to see us try to search for that where we cut these unresponsive numbers down with me. It's always a burden on me when we declare somebody non-responsive. Let's catch them before they bid, not after. Thank you.
Thank you.
And let me, if I can, Mayor, I just want to remind the council that we are initiating a thorough overview or review and process improvement of our purchasing system. They'll be using an outside consultant that'll come in and kind of see what we're doing and what's best practice in Texas or the country. And that it can include some of this material that we're talking about today.
Thank you, Peter. I'm so glad you mentioned that. Just something that I want to add. I've obviously made it clear that I have a very close friend that works at the comptroller's office, and they've indicated that there's some state agencies that they'll do a precursor review for technical compliance. So prior to the submittal. So that way, what they'll do is they'll say, "Hey, you realize that you put this together, it's going to get disqualified." And so that way, there's a process to do that in addition to the pre-bid conference. It's a little bit more work on our part,
right?
But the contractors begin to really understand what we're looking for. And as Mr. Edmonds said, I guess they don't think we're serious. At this point, they really understand we're going to give you that time to be able to do so.
Yes, sir.
A little bit more work, but just food for thought.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, so there's been a motion. If there's nothing further, there's been a motion by Councilmember Hernandez and a second by Councilmember Lerma. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, next on the agenda, we have the legislative update. And I understand, Mr. Zanoni, you're going to speak on behalf of Ms. Embry?
Yes, I am. Yes, thank you, Mayor. This will be short. Tammy, our legislative staff member, is up in Austin right now, working that scene and helping two council members. We know that Councilman Molina and Smith are both up there today. So last week, just as kind of a recap, there was a hearing on, hearings, I should say, on 4 bills that are out there on defunding police. So that was, there was a lot of work on it last week. Also last week, the no taxpayer lobbying bill was heard in committee. We know Councilman Barrero was there early in the morning helping us out. And then the staff was also monitoring a few other items in the House State Affairs Committee for last week. So this week, we asked Tammy Friday to kind of tell us what's big this week, what's going on up in Austin this week. And the reason Councilman Molina and Smith are up there is because they're testifying on the TWIA, the insurance bills that are being considered by the House Insurance Committee today. So we know that windstorm insurance and hurricane insurance is a big deal for us here in the coastal city. And we're appreciative of Molina and Smith testifying on our behalf. Also today, our finance director, Heather Hubert, is up in Austin as well. We introduced legislation to help cities like ours that get hit by a sales tax audit. What I mean by that is the state comptroller's office did an audit of sales tax paid by a pretty large company here, headquartered here in Corpus Christi. The result of that audit was we had to pay back a significant amount of sales tax because of an overpayment. But the process and how the city's engaged and what information we're given, the fact that they're even doing an audit doesn't exist today. They don't have to tell you you're doing an audit. They're doing an audit, I should say. There's very little information. We had to file open records requests, work with our legislative delegation to try to get information. All we wanted was good information to figure out why we had to pay back, I think, several million, was it, Constance? $3 million in sales tax. So our legislative team, our lobby team said, you know what, we can't really fix it this time, but let's put legislation in that kind of requires Comptroller's office to, one, notify a city that they're doing this audit so we can have a general understanding, and then two, provide us better information along the way. So anyway, that bill is being heard today, and our finance director is there helping us, as well as Senator Hinojosa, who sponsored the bill for us. So then just one other update, the Nueces County Port of Corpus Christi Economic Development Bill that we know has not been filed yet. We're watching that one just so we can know what's happening. And this week, Tammy was saying the bill can be filed, but it hasn't been filed as of today. So that's it for the update, Mayor Pro Tem. We know that, just to remind the council, Tammy Embry, our intergovernmental relations manager, does send a pretty thick email every Sunday. This is the printout of it. And so it provides us and the council with the week ahead information on all the bills. This is the important time of the season, and Tammy will be briefing me each Friday to prepare for the following week. So at our council meetings going forward, either myself, the mayor, or Tammy will provide a presentation or briefing to the council so the full body is aware of what's happening up in Austin. That concludes my presentation.
All right. Councilmember Martinez?
Just for clarification, when we talk about defunding police bills, they're actually like against defunding the police, correct?
Right, yes.
Yeah,
That's
so
correct, yeah.
can we call it maybe the anti-defund police bill or something? Because
yeah,
just it gives me, every time we hear that we're supporting a bill, on the defund police, I just want to make clear that we are not supporting a bill to defund police. We're actually doing the opposite, right?
Exactly, right. Yes, sir, good point, thank you.
Yeah. Well, actually, what the bill does is it penalizes organizations that defund the police. However, there's language in there that specifically, if, let's say, for example, one of the things that was spoken of during one of the hearings was that the reallocation of funds, and in our case, this was a good example. We had this presentation today to use it for crisis intervention. Then that could be perceived as defunding the police. And the Austin police chief, who it was his second day, testified and indicating that there were some issues. They did obviously have to. They did have a cutback with regard to. And mind you, I might mention that we still are at less officers per capita after they cut back 150 police officers. So, but that's the challenge, that language needs to be worked out. So, anyway. And then, one other thing I might add, in the two times that I've been up there during the session, I just have to commend, Tammy has done an excellent job with regard to being in more places than once. When there's multiple hearings, she and her colleagues that work with other cities, they piggyback on each other. They reconvene so that way they can take notes to talk about what happened, because you can't be in more places than once or more than one hearing. That being said, not that I'm advocating for us to spend more money on lobbyists, but in comparison, what I found to other communities, I think for focused advocacy, I found out we're paying about $112,000 a year. And, I guess, from what I remember, San Antonio has a $4 billion budget?
I think it's $2 billion annually.
$2 billion?
Yeah.
And I know that they were sending like $800,000 with regard to their budget. Theirs. So it was the city of Austin, I guess they were in the $4 billion arena, and they were sending like $1.4 million. Yeah. Not advocating that once again, but I just think that, once again, when I see Tammy's emails come out at 11 o'clock at night, or when she sends that information, I think maybe during the session, and I know we discussed it, providing some support administratively or something of that nature might be good for us, just so that way we can be a little bit more effective.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Hernandez?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to, I guess, say I'm a little disappointed in our legislative thing, because we're not getting all the information on a timely basis. For example, I had no idea Councilman Barrera was up testifying in Austin. I had no idea that Councilman Smith and Councilman Molina were going to be testifying today. There's just been no information as to how this is coming through, and I'm very disappointed. I feel somewhat left out in that aspect. Wasn't even offered the opportunity to, if I was given the to go up to Austin and testify for any particular reason. I don't know why these particular council members were selected. I can make an assumption, but I don't feel like I'm personally getting enough information from our legislative support, I guess Tammy, I guess you could say. But I would like to have more information, at least come to other council members as well. I'm pretty sure not everybody's getting all the information that some council members are getting. And it should be equally amount of information given to all of us. Thank
Okay,
you.
yes, sir, that's noted. And probably what we can do is maybe on Sunday, I think Tammy probably knew who we would be inviting up there by as of Sunday. So we'll get, we can start communicating with you on a Sunday rather than on a Tuesday as to who's going up there. Okay. Just maybe one other thing too, since you're talking about information, we are working with Tammy for the Corpus Christi City Council to Austin event. And just to put it on your radar, that's going to be Wednesday, April 21st. And there are some limitations, I guess, but we're trying to work around those. So April 21 is when the Corpus Christi to Austin event day is. We'll be working with you on what takes place and what the event will look like.
Well, I understand that, but, and I figured that was going to happen, whether it's going to be the Coastal Bend to, I think we worked with the Chamber of Commerce in the past. But is this going to be separate from that?
I believe this is a separate event. It's just Corpus
Okay.
Christi.
I think we discussed that,
It's
so
just
we.
Corpus Christi, right?
Coastal Bend Day.
Oh, it's a Coastal Bend Day?
No, it's everyone, Peter.
Oh, okay,
And
sorry.
I'll say,
Okay.
I'll say this, I'm sorry, I can't be as vocal as I would like to right now, but Gil, our councilman, we can talk about some of these things you're mentioning later, but, there might be some limitations in terms of the Coastal Bend Day, because it's set up very differently. It's not at the Capitol this time, it's in a hotel, and I believe delegations are gonna come to us, but that said, I certainly don't want you or anyone else to feel left out in terms of people going to Austin. Some of that was set off on the wrong foot, as far as when, the first time people went up there, and I didn't want that to happen. It did. But I do want to address again right now. It's probably not the best time because I can barely talk, but I do want to address the importance of what you're saying because it is important and it matters to me. No one's being left out, but I can see how it looks that way. But I'd like to talk with you and I'll talk to the other council members about it as well.
Well, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that. But, it would have been, just the courtesy to let city council members know who is going to be representing us in Austin would have been, at the very least, what should have been provided to all council members. Now, I know myself and a few other council members were not aware, and we were informed by other people outside of city staff that council members were in Austin testifying and lobbying without our knowledge. I understand that it was not intentional, but it does give the appearance that was the case. And whether it was, and like I said, I don't believe it was intentional, but it was inappropriate, and it should have that information should have been given to us before anybody went to Austin.
Well, I can tell you this, I will be working on a protocol for this. I'll be working on a protocol because it's sometimes, I'll just say there needs to be a process for that. And it needs to be, the duties of that need to be delineated as to who goes, if they go, when they go, who gets asked. There's just there are a lot more pieces to this, but I agree with you completely. Thank you.
Okay, that's it for the legislative update. It's time for lunch, but I believe both executive session items have been tabled or moved?
Yes, right. So the judges one we'll do when we bring that item back for the judge appointments. And then the other one where we're going to talk about some Open Meetings Act material, Councilman Molina actually requested that. We felt it'd be good for him to be here and present. So we'll schedule that one for our next council meeting as well.
All right, so I guess to break for lunch, what should I?
Just a call
Thank-
for a recess, please, and maybe 30 minutes, whatever you think.
Okay, well, let's call for a recess for lunch for 30 minutes.
You turn your mic on, please.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. We reconvene the meeting. We're at a recess, and so now we will move on. I guess we have no public hearings today?
That's correct, Mayor.
All right, so then we'll move on to item 17. Motion awarding a construction contract to Western Specialty Contractors, Selma, Texas, to perform maintenance repairs on seawall extending from McGee Beach to Barge Dock.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, Jeff Edmonds, Director of Engineering Services. I have a presentation on that if they can pull it up. Next slide. A little background on the seawall. It's about 9,300 feet in length, and construction was completed in 1942. There was major reconstruction done. It was a series of projects that were completed in 2006, and that was expected to recapitalize the seawall for 50 years. In spite of that, you still have to do minor repairs to it every 3 to 6 years just to preserve the condition. So, next slide. So the scope of this project includes minor concrete repairs, spall repairs, joint repairs, crack repairs. It's going to make some minor repairs at each of the 8 mirror doors. We're going to replace some stainless steel handrails at Lawrence Street and People Street, fix the non-working drinking fountains, and final step is going to be repaint the top step and little wall. And of course, we'll be washing the entire length. And we're going to install skate stops along the length to hopefully discourage some of that activity. Next slide. Next slide. Next, sorry. Next slide. Okay, these photos illustrate some of the distresses that we're going to be addressing out there. You can see honeycombing and cracks and joints that need sealing. Next slide. Again, more cracks. There's a large area on top of one of the retaining walls that is going to have to be taken out and replaced. And you see there a rail that needs to be replaced. Next slide. Okay, so this is awarding a construction contract. This is an item that is in the approved CIP. We actually put this out last year, and this was right at the beginning of COVID, and there was a lack of interest. And we had a low bidder that there was questions about their responsiveness. So we decided to reject bids on that. There was a huge gap between 1 and 2, so we didn't think that awarding number 2 made sense. So we made the decision to re-advertise. So at this point, we're recommending awarding this contract to Western Specialty Contractors of Selma, Texas for $1.098 million. And I stand ready for any questions.
Mr. Hernandez?
Yes, thank you. And this is question on I didn't see anywhere where this was approved by the Type A board in terms of the seawall. Now, I know they approved a budget for this, but I don't think they've actually, any of this was brought to Type A. And maybe I'm not clear on the process on why it didn't go through them for this particular item, if it's being funded by them.
My understanding is they approve the funding action. They don't actually have to approve the contract.
So they weren't even briefed on this at all?
Yeah, they were as part of the budget process, and when
Well,
they
that was
approved
back in July, or that was last year, right?
that was, yeah, last year.
Okay, so, I mean, they fund it, and I went and checked it in CIP.
Yeah.
And you're within your budget, within the contingency, right?
Yeah, actually, you know what, Councilman, we do monthly, is it monthly or
It's quarterly.
quarterly? We do quarterly updates, so the last quarterly update was January?
That's correct.
In January, they got a briefing that this was on cue to be coming to
We
council
told them it was
soon.
coming to bid,
Yeah.
but.
Okay, so
we
they
don't
don't
typically take the
actually look at the
contracts back.
projects, they just fund it.
No, they're interested in the life of the project to completion, and we keep them informed. So at the Cole Park Pier event, as an example, Type A board representatives were there. As we just said, the answer was incorrect that I first said. It wasn't last July, it was January that they got the most recent briefing as part of our quarterly briefings that we give to the Type A board on all capital projects that they fund. And so they got a briefing then in January 2021.
Now, if we had to amend the CIP, we would have had to go back to them to.
Right,
amend
I
the
mean,
CIP.
you're within budget for this, so I'm not, I'm
Correct, so
not
we did
complaining
not
about
have to
that.
go back
It just
for-
seemed, and I just wanted a clarification that, you know, there's no requirement for Lou to review the projects and approve them, that, you know, it's just budgeting for these particular projects and we approve the actual project.
That's correct, Councilman.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Barrera, may I make a comment?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. And I just want to thank you for bringing this forth, Peter and staff. This is a project that's, well, it's been out there for a while, as Mr. Edmonds just mentioned, but the need for this is extreme. And I think this council and the prior have made city maintenance of our properties priority. And this is one that is extremely needed. I think Alyssa would agree with me, Alyssa Barrera Mason. Not only the repairs, but especially the cleaning of, is it the top step that's only going to be cleaned, Peter?
No, all the steps, Mayor, will be pressure washed prior to any of the reconstruction work that Jeff talked about. So step one is pressure washing all the cantilevered steps to the bayfront from one end to the next.
Oh, so all of the steps? I thought it was
Yes.
just the top.
The top is the only one that's painted.
Yeah,
so
the
that's
top
going
step
to be
is
repainted.
right. Yeah, we added to the right after we received some feedback and input from you and Alyssa. We went ahead and included in the project pressure washing of all the steps along the seawall.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's, I was going to say, this is some things, I mean, the steps themselves are, you know, beyond the need. I don't think they've ever been pressure washed. So this is just a huge item. So thank you. It just got bigger this moment because I didn't realize, I thought we were still at just the top. So thank you. This is huge. I think this is really going to add to not only the work that Alyssa and her team have been doing in this area, but altogether, you know, to beautify yet another and one of our greatest assets, which is our water. So thank you so much. This is wonderful news. Very good news item.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. You know, we can I just add to that too? Neiman Young's here, but we convened a meeting Monday to get all the departments involved in managing the seawall from a destination standpoint. You know, we're reviewing what staff we have there, especially on the weekends, because there's hundreds, if not thousands, of people that go up and down and up. So we're reassessing, are we managing the venue correctly, and do we need to do more? And so we'll have some feedback on that soon. We'll share it with the council because it will impact. It's going to make it a better venue for our community and for the tourists that come here. I just wanted to add that as well, Mayor. Thank you.
Yes, perfect.
Councilman Litterman?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I just want to say, Peter, and to the staff, Jeff, and all that, this is a very, very important project, especially in District 1. I mean, we've been working hard. You guys have been working hard on trying to work with the downtown management district and trying to beautify and uplift the buildings down there. But this is going to put the icing on the cake, you know, because that area is just used so much that we don't even really know how many people really walk up and down, you know, that area. And it's just going to be a big improvement, and it's going to show the tourists that come into the town that we do care about our downtown, and it's just going to beautify that whole section. So I really appreciate you guys putting it on the agenda and helping develop and maintain. And I think it's important, I think Gil's brought it up in the past on all projects, that we need to have a maintenance program to assess continuously, you know, and I think you guys are doing a good job on that, and I really greatly appreciate that. So keep up the good work.
Right, thank you, Councilman. And can I just add, Councilman, that we're going to be watching the construction real closely, right? Because there's tourists there around the week, so we're going to pay a close attention to making sure that the tourists and the walkways not totally ice cut off or things left around. We want it to look good as they do the construction. We don't want a messy job site or a cluttered job site. So just to let everybody know, we're going to be watching it, I am personally, real closely to make sure that there's no disruption or as little disruption as possible to the visitor and our own selves through the process. It's a highly trafficked, highly visible area, so we're aware of that, and the contractor is as well. Mhm.
Councilman Pusley?
Thank you, sir. Well, the mayor asked the question I was going to ask. Alyssa was kind enough to give me a tour of downtown last week, and that was one of the things that she brought up, the power washing and cleaning of the steps. So it's great that that's going to get done. But I just want to add to that, Peter, to further on your remarks about studying, managing the asset. Lighting is additional lighting is desperately needed in that area, and I hope y'all put that on the list of things. And Alyssa and her group have been talking about it, but there are lots of people who walk in the daytime, but we want to make them feel safe about walking there at night too, and the more lights we have, the better, I think.
Okay, yes, sir. Councilman Pusley, that is on the parks radar when we were working on potential bond program projects. They brought that to our attention, so we have it it's on the top of the list. So the next funding cycle, not the next bond, but maybe this next budget process, we can find additional money to do that. Yep, thank you.
Councilman Lerner, you have your light on still?
Yes, sir. One more comment.
Yes, sir.
One more comment I wanted to make, true what Councilman Pusley, just to write on what he just said as far as the lighting, but also I think what's important is the crosswalks, to make sure that the pedestrians are able to walk, because that's such a busy street, and we need to make sure they are able to walk safely. And the lighting and that type of thing for the crosswalks, I think that's very, very important to the citizens and the tourists in this town, so that they can stay in that crosswalk and not walk just straight across the street.
Yeah, exactly, Councilman. And so as part of that resurfacing of Ocean Drive and Shoreline Drive, we're putting in several new crosswalks that were never there today, especially by the Omni for appropriate crossing. And the ones that exist today will be repainted when we do the street work. So we're mindful of that. There's a pretty big project in place for better pedestrian crossover from the one side to the next, because right now you have to kind of run across and jump in one of those medians and then run the second stretch. So improvements are coming. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, any further questions? All right, there's a motion to approve by Councilman Pusley.
Second.
And a second the second has already been made by Councilman Lerma.
Oh, okay.
That's
fine.
A third by Mayor Guajardo. So all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, that brings us to agenda item number 18, motion awarding a professional services contract to Riza Weinberger and Associates Incorporated, Dallas, Texas, to provide a conceptual design, process design, and permitting services for a new solid waste compost facility. Mr. Edmonds.
Jeff Edmonds, Director of Engineering Services. I'm going to tee it up, and then I'm going to turn it over to David Layfield, Director of Solid Waste. This is a small contract, but it's a start of a larger program. It's part of the solid waste facility complex that's described in the CIP book. This is just a small part of it. It's an important part. This is just to start the design process. It's for conceptual design and permitting on the compost facility. There'll be a subsequent amendment coming to do the detailed design and bid documents, but it's a little bit hard to scope that part until we get through the conceptual design part. I'm going to turn the floor over to David and let him describe a little bit more about the program to you.
Mr. Layfield, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. This is a great opportunity for the city of Corpus Christi. We generate 300,000 cubic yards of brush annually from all the vegetation that we have, and currently 230,000 cubic yards of that is being landfilled. We do have a contract to grind about 70,000 cubic yards, and that's used both in city facilities and given back to the public. But we have an opportunity here to move forward, move the city into the future, and really remove a lot of material from the waste stream that we put into the landfill. One of the benefits of a compost facility is it's much cheaper to compost material than it is to put it into the landfill. So although we have some upfront costs to get the thing running, in the long run, it's going to save the city potentially millions of dollars over many years. So that's a major benefit. The other major benefit is the soils in Corpus Christi are either very, very sandy out on the island or very heavy clays in other part of town, both of which need a lot of work, a lot of help in order to be productive and grow anything. Anybody who's dug our clay soils knows how terribly heavy they are and very difficult to grow things in. And compost is one of those products that it takes a sandy soil and makes it better, it takes a clay soil and makes it better. And so by having a compost facility, not only will we be saving landfill space, saving money, we'll be able to provide a product back to our customers in a form that they can really utilize and help beautify the city. So from all perspectives, it's a win-win-win-win, and I really see no downsides. I stand ready for any comments or questions.
All right. Councilman Molina, Councilman Smith, are they still on?
I've got one.
Oh, Mayor Guajardo? Feel free.
Yes, Mr. Layfeld, thank you. I think this is a great item. I recently formed the Mayor's Environmental Task Force, just for them to have a seat at the table in regards to the environment, and this is a huge item they're very happy about. I know you guys have been working on this for a while, and the fact that it will, I guess, alleviate or make available, I think you said, half of the municipal waste that is landfilled could potentially be recycled. That's huge. I mean, it's a big win for the city in terms of caring and making the environment a part of this. So thank you very much. Just very happy about this item.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Pusley?
So explain to me how this process works. Are you going to take just the brush that you're picking up with the brush trucks and stack it out and let it compost, or how's the procedure going to work? I've read through all the material. I don't quite understand.
Okay, this is a multi-stage process program that we're looking at. To begin with, we're going to start with the massive amount of brush that we have and grind it into a mulch that we can utilize. We will then mix that with other vegetative waste. We've identified wastewater sludge as a major component that we can mix in with it. We'll be looking to the industrial and commercial sector for other organic waste. In past cities, I've reached out to Coca-Cola, for instance. When they had a batch that didn't meet their quality standards, we could mix the Coca-Cola in, and that would help out. And so there's a wide variety of organic materials that a city our size generates. We will be reaching out to H-E-B and the other grocery stores for the vegetative waste. When they clean through their vegetable produce areas, they oftentimes clean up the stems and the leaves and whatnot. That waste is all compostable. So the first step is to take the low-hanging fruit. We anticipate that we can generate about 100,000 tons of diversion with our initial program. But with time, we hope to be able to roll it out as a curbside collection to the residents, where the residents can sign up and get a third cart, which would allow them to separate organic waste at the household at their level. 2/3 of everything we throw away from our household is compostable, and as we move forward, this will be an opportunity to add that type of material in. There's all sorts of material out there that's compostable, and it's just a matter of connecting the dots, finding who has large amounts of clean compostable waste, and moving that back into our organization where we can divert it into the compost facility.
So that third container is something I figured that's where you were going to head, and that's something I have a concern about, but I want to come back to that. So are you planning on selling this back to consumers? Or are you going to give it away people will line up if they want compost material? How will that work?
Well, if we just give it away, you run into several problems with that. One, if you don't charge for it, it must not be worth anything, must not be usable. The other problem with giving it away is you suddenly become in competition with our local nurseries in town that currently retail compost and organic products.
That's my other point, so go ahead.
Right. A plan that I've used in the past that makes it very doable is we don't become a competitor with the local nurseries, we become a supplier to the local nurseries. Right now, many of them bring the compost that they sell in from San Antonio, which has a program that's very similar to what we're recommending. And so they're trucking it down here and then selling it to the citizens. If we become a supplier, we became a partner with the local nurseries. We're just working with the local business to make this available. And as a result, the local nurseries benefit from it, we benefit from it, and our citizens benefit as well. So that's one of the directions that we're looking at. And I've reached out early on to many of the local nurseries for comment, and we've started that dialogue. We haven't gotten very far. We haven't gotten much response, but that is the direction that we're looking at going.
Okay. And to go back to your comment about the third container, I mean, I just have a little concern about the overhead being more costly than what we're doing already, because as you know, as we saw earlier this year when we received information about the restructuring of our recycling program, we had to do that to make that at least, you know, somewhat cost effective. So I just don't want to see us get into a situation where we're doing something where we end up spending more money than what think we're going to save.
And I appreciate that, and those are good thoughts. One of the things about composting is that the processing of compost is cheaper than landfilling, just to begin with. Recycling, I can't say that. Recycling is an additional cost factor, and recycling has to be shipped to other places. We don't utilize it locally. Compost, on the other hand, is something that we don't just process it locally, we use it locally, we sell it locally, and we're not shipping it anyplace else. It creates local jobs, it creates local opportunities. And so I understand where you're coming from, but the benefits, the financial benefits, it's about 2/3 the cost to compost as it is to landfill it. So for every $100 we would spend on landfilling, composting is only going to cost us about
I don't argue with that
$65.
part of what you're trying to do. What I'm talking about is if we put a third can out there, then we've got additional trucks running up and down the road. We've got additional manpower, making sure that people aren't just putting everything in those cans. And to me, it just gets into a whole nother level of bureaucracy that taxpayers have to fund and pay for. And at the end of the day, when you factor that into your savings on composting, so anyway, I guess my point is, before we get to that point, I'd want to hear a lot more about how that's going to be a success.
Yes, sir, and that's many years down the road. We want to get the facility up and running. We want to get the processing proven. We want to get the techniques out there and make sure we're operating a good facility, providing a good quality compost. A bad compost is a bad thing to do. It really creates more problems. So we want to make sure we have a quality program all the way around.
All right, if there's nothing further, do I?
Motion to approve.
Second. There's a motion by Councilmember Hernandez and a second by Councilman Hunter. Please, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item number 19, motion awarding a construction contract to Associated Construction Partners Limited, Bernie, Texas, for the Allison wastewater treatment plant, lift station, and plant improvement upgrades. Mr. Norton?
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Kevin Norton, Director of Water Utilities. Next slide, please. This isn't the presentation that I put in. You can see another one in there. All right, I'll start again. Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Kevin Norton, Director of Water Utilities. This is a motion toward a $17.7 million construction contract for restoration and modernization of the Allison wastewater treatment plant, responsible for service to the Northwest Corpus Christi. This comprehensive project has been listed as a requirement in the city's capital improvement program since 2015. The contractor is Associated Construction Partners Incorporated. They have completed a number of utility projects for the city since 2012 for both water and wastewater utilities. You can see the presentation in there? Okay, well, I'll go ahead and continue. So the Allison Wastewater Treatment Plant Service Basin is the northwest service area, which includes Annaville, Tolosa Midway, and Cal Allen. And the plant itself was built in 1966. The most recent capital project was in 1984, when treatment capacity was expanded from 2 to 5 million gallons per day. The existing aged equipment is not as efficient or effective as it once was. 80% of the TCEQ permit violations at the treatment plants, at all 6 treatment plants over the past 3 years, occurred at the Allison plant. And the Allison plant is one of 3 wastewater treatment plants that are subject to the consent decree requirements and penalties, the other 2 being the Oso and Greenwood plants. A number of wastewater treatment plant CIP projects were put on hold from 2014 to 2016 while the city evaluated treatment plant consolidation. In late 2016, the evaluation estimated $900 million in capital cost to consolidate from 6 to 4 wastewater treatment plants. So in May of 2017, the City Council made the decision to forego the consolidation effort and formally approved a resolution to maintain and repair the existing 6 wastewater treatment plants. I mentioned 5 million gallon per day capacity, so the existing treatment capacity does not need to be increased with this project because the Allison plant averages 2.5 million gallons per day inflow, or about half of the rated capacity. There's available treatment capacity for population growth in this area. There is going to be one treatment process improvement to what is called integrated fixed film activated sludge. That's abbreviated as IFAS. This technology improves the treatment capability within the existing basin, and it can be expanded to the other aeration basins if needed. The construction period for this project is less than 2 years to phase in all of this work, and the plant will remain fully operational during construction. The scope of work touches basically every wastewater treatment component throughout the entire plant. This concludes the presentation. Staff recommends approval of the motion to award the construction contract. Standing by for questions.
Mr. Hernandez?
Thank you. The cost versus the estimation is considerable. Can you explain how that came about?
Yes, sir. So there was Urban Engineering was the design engineer, and they had created that initial cost estimate, which was approximately $14 million. This is a $17.7 million project, so almost $4 million difference. And there was one underestimation. The major component was the electrical portion of the project. That was about a $2 million difference on there. And then there was other cost factors, just the price of logistics, materials, fuel has all gone up from when they did that their cost estimate a couple of years ago. And so just because of the price escalation on things, that was unforeseen. So that accounted for part of it. And then there's a couple of other minor differences between like what our engineer consultant had estimated for like the mobilization cost and what they put in there, which was allowed, and a couple of other items like that added up to about $4 million difference.
Okay. I see that you updated the CIP page in your in the agenda memo packet here. But, just help me understand this, because we have a lot of cost associated with the EPA consent agreement. And if we have these kind of significant cost overruns, we're not going to be able to I don't think we'll be able to get to them all. And not to mention our bonding capacity. Maybe you can address this, Constance, in terms of, we had to borrow money for the gas issue, and I believe that goes to our overall bonding capacity, correct?
Yes, sir, it does. But with our utility notes, we consider them self-sufficient because the ratepayers will be paying them back specifically for those notes.
Well, I understand.
Yeah, but
I
overall,
understand.
you're correct.
I understand it's
Yeah.
capacity issues, what
Yes,
I'm
sir.
looking at, right?
Mhm.
So maybe if you could provide us kind of an idea, for council, where we are in our bonding capacity for utilities, since they're all encompassing for all the utilities and where we're at with that.
Well, the issue with the utilities is it's not as easy to determine
Well,
the bond capacity.
based on current rates.
Well, that's the whole fact. That's the whole point. The current rates are set to pay your debt. So if you're going to issue additional debt that you don't have planned, we have to reevaluate.
Okay,
whole
so how
model.
does this affect that in terms of the additional $3.5 million we weren't prepared? Is that going to require a rate increase?
I wouldn't say that for sure. The utility bonds would be paid for out of fiscal year '22, so next year.
Right.
And so we would have to look at our complete CIP programs that are scheduled for 2022 and determine at that point whether we would need a bond rate increase or not. But I wouldn't say that for sure right at this point.
Okay, based on what we were looking at through the EPA consent agreement, there was supposed to be a rate increase next year,
Okay.
right? Am I incorrect in that, in the presentation that you gave? It is projected as a rate increase, right? And so when you have things like this, that's going to affect that. I mean, $3.5 million is maybe a drop in the bucket for the overall budget, but it still adds to that rate increase, right?
Right, and we would have to look to see perhaps there's another project maybe that we could scale back or defer and maybe do that in '23 rather than in '22. So there's various options we can do to manage our rates.
Okay, well, I mean, considering the amount of work that we have to do in wastewater as well as water, on the water side, and I still don't know completely on the stormwater side, and then the surprise with the gas, it is continuing. You know, there's concerns here with all the projects we want to do. If you could circle back on that, and so we can have an idea of what it is looking like now and what we're projecting in the future. If you have to remove some, I'd rather, if we can try and keep in budget that we have projected, it would be much better. Anyway, I understand that sometimes we can't estimate everything perfectly, but this is a significant difference. I mean, it's a large amount of money.
Sure.
Okay, so thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Any other questions?
Second.
There's a motion by Councilmember Pusley and a second by Councilmember Lerma. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, agenda item number 20, motion authorizing a cost-share agreement with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to conduct a study that will analyze impaired infrastructure and provide alternatives to address stream bank erosion control related to the Mary Roads Pipeline Phase 2 System Improvements Project. Mr. Norton?
There's a presentation on this one, too.
All right,
Thank you.
we got this one up this.
Sure. Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Kevin Norton, Director of Water Utilities. This is a motion to approve the city entering into a cost-share agreement with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for a feasibility study to mitigate stream bank erosion by the Mary Roads Pipeline Phase 2 pump station located next to the Colorado River. Next slide, please. This aerial map shows the Mary Roads pump station location next to the Colorado River. For reference, Bay City, Texas is just to the east of the river. The project site that will be evaluated is shown in red. This is approximately a half-mile length of the west bank of the Colorado River. Extensive rainfall from Hurricane Harvey caused extensive erosion to the riverbank in 2017, and heavy rainfall in 2018-2019 further eroded the river's bank. The Army Corps of Engineers manages a stream bank and shoreline protection program. In 2019, our water resources staff contacted the Army Corps of Engineer office out of Galveston to identify if the project earned potential for their program, which it does. So the Army Corps of Engineers pushed forward to capture this project into their program for fiscal year 2021. Next slide, please. This photo shows the erosion I referenced earlier from the Colorado River. The bank has receded 10 to 12 feet since 2017. The river pump station is visible in the upper right of the photo and is approximately 60 yards from the river bank. The sedimentation basins are about 40 yards from the bank. The feasibility study will be completed under the Stream Bank and Shoreline Protection Continuing Authorities Program, which allows the Army Corps of Engineers to plan, design, and construct projects like ours. This is a two-phase program that is cost-shared between the city and the Army Corps of Engineers. The first phase is the feasibility study. The Army Corps pays the first $100,000, and then the remaining cost of the study is split 50-50. This study is estimated at $285,000. Therefore, the Army Corps of Engineers will pay $192,500, and the city will fund $92,500. The study will identify and evaluate alternatives including a no-action option if applicable. 2 of the alternatives will be cost estimated, and the study will provide a recommended course of action in 9 months. The future second phase is design and construction, which will also be cost shared, with the Army Corps of Engineers funding 65% and the city funding 35% of the design and construction cost. The Army Corps of Engineers is capped to $5 million for their portion of the total projects, so the final design and construction costs will need to be $7.4 million or less. This concludes the presentation. Staff recommends approval. Standing by for questions.
All right. Mayor, do you have any questions? Councilman Pusley?
Kevin, so this is just to study the problem. This is not to make any repairs. Am I understanding that correct?
That's correct, sir. It's gonna look at a couple of different alternatives, and then it'll cost estimate 2 of them.
And I would assume that we're going to be partners with the Army Corps of Engineers on any repairs that are made. Is that true?
That's correct, yes, sir. It's their program.
And when do we think or assume that they might be able to budget for doing repairs?
My understanding is that we're in the program now, so we'll go through the feasibility study, and assuming, the recommendation is no action, which it shouldn't be, but assuming that we go, then it'll follow on into design and construction in the following fiscal year, and that should be in FY22.
Okay. Because I'm just using words out of the report that you guys furnish us, but the bank has been severely compromised. It's in imminent danger of failure. It's only a few feet from the pump station, and I assume if that pump station got knocked out, the ability for the Mary Roads to deliver water is going to be compromised as well.
That's true. We have a ways to go there, though, sir.
Okay.
There's the pump station, and then there's the sedimentation basins. The sedimentation basins are actually closer, and they're about 40 yards away. The edge of the sedimentation, the closest sedimentation basin is about 40 yards away from the riverbank.
Okay. Well, Peter, we have to move this along as quickly as possible because this is a significant threat to our water supply. And anytime we say, we're going to be okay and this is not going to be a problem, it's just like we were saying that 17-degree weather wasn't going to be a problem. So,
Right, yeah.
We need to be advancing this as quickly as we can.
Right, yes, sir. Yeah, I got the photos in advance of the meeting to better understand it myself, but we do have a couple of full-time staff persons that are out in that 100 miles from here, monitoring it and watching it and reporting to us weekly, so we'll be monitoring it closely. Mm-hmm.
Thanks, sir.
All right, there being no further questions, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion by Councilman Hunter and a second by Councilman Lerna. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, first reading ordinances, we only have 2, so item number 21, ordinance awarding a construction contract to EMR Elevator Incorporated, Corpus Christi, Texas, for the replacement and upgrade of the 4 City Hall elevators, machinery, and equipment. Mr. Edmonds?
Good afternoon, Jeff Edmonds, Director of Engineering Services. This is an ordinance, two-read ordinance because of the financial aspect in amending the CIP. And this is awarding a construction contract to EMR Elevator, who was the low bidder on this for $1,047,000, $1,047,740, sorry. That's a local company. And we've been on borrowed time with these elevators, is what Charles would tell you. And we understand that the next time they came in for inspection, we're not likely to pass inspection. So it's a project that is, let's just say, just in time. We feel like these elevators have reached the end of their economic life. So we recommend award of the construction contract to the low bidder. I stand ready for any questions.
Councilman Letterman has a question. So.
No, I just have a comment. Why are you guys letting us use the elevators then?
That's why we have council
I'm gonna be honest with you. If I knew this ahead of time, you think I'd be going up and down those elevators? I'm using stairs now from now on, guys. Nobody told me this, man.
We'll see you Thursday, Councilman.
All right.
Gosh.
Okay.
Apparently, right? Yeah.
The problem is when everybody in the building is having to use those stairs.
All right, well, so we have a motion by Councilman Pusley. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second by Councilman Lerma. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right. Agenda item number 22. Ordinance accepting and appropriating Federal Aviation Administration grants number 63 and number 64 totaling $2,667,902 pursuant to the Federal Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Acts for economic relief to eligible U.S. airports affected by the prevention of, preparation for, and response to the the COVID-19 pandemic. It's a long sentence. Mr. Zanoni, who will be presenting on that one?
This is what happened to Kevin. Yeah. There he is. Okay. I saw him here earlier. Yes, Kevin, our airport director, is going to present.
No worries. Sorry, I didn't know there'd be questions on this one. Yeah, so this is the round 2 of what's called CRISA. It's another CARES Act funding that the FAA has granted to all airports, and this is basically our portion. It does have to be spent on COVID-related items, anything that helps us space passengers out or separates passengers, cleaning equipment, things of that nature. We can use it for a couple of operations and maintenance items, but they're very limited on this particular grant. And it's a 2-part. This Part 64 is basically about $70,000 that will go to our concessionaires, the rental car companies, and the food and beverage operator at the airport. Be happy to take any questions.
All right. Well, excellent job appropriating grants at $2.6 million.
Yeah, we're excited.
All right.
Is this
You're ready, you spend it now, huh?
Yeah, well, we've got 4 years to spend it. That's also good news. So we don't have to rush to spend it, which is good. Gives us time to prepare and think and really strategically plan how we want to spend this money.
So I'll entertain a motion for a non-debatable motion to provide support. There's a motion by Councilman Pusley. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second by Councilman Lerma. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Go spend your money.
All right, well, I believe that is it, Ms. Huerta, council, and Mr. Zanoni. Meeting's adjourned.